Hello, everyone. Welcome to Geeky Geezers. I'm your host, Aged Boomer. This is my co-host, Pacelli. I'm being thrown off.
Hello.
Are we on the wrong side here?
No, let's switch it around.
Fix that.
No,
Oh
I got it. There you go.
There we go. Now that's
we
correct.
are a class act here. Let me tell you.
You're
What,
not
you
a
really
class
think
act.
people are going to confuse you for age boomer and vice
Well,
versa?
no. You guys know that the one that's still cutting his grass in wintertime is the Florida guy.
You have to, man. It grows.
Yeah,
You
well,
don't
it
have
doesn't
to
do
mow
that
it as
here
much in
anymore
the winter,
the
but
season.
yeah. I don't need the notes. I need the PDF document. Let's upload that. Welcome, chat. Are y'all excited?
Excited about
Crickets?
what?
Oh, they can't talk to me. Hello, my geezer friends. Hope you have a great show tonight. Thank you, Big Al. Welcome, FKHC 2005, otherwise known as Tim.
Yes.
Welcome, Horizon Talker. Welcome, Jessica Hardo. Welcome, Netter of Netter's Network. Thank you for the hi, sweetie. Welcome, Critical Drinking and Thinking.
Yes.
I've seen you on here before, but welcome. Matt and Nui, welcome. What else we got here? Tim Hayes, welcome. Connie Cleary, welcome. Let's see who else is here. Space Fraggle, welcome. And am I caught up yet? And Troy Pacelli, welcome.
Okay. Yes.
So here we are. How was your Thanksgiving weekend? Get a lot of Black Friday deals, huh?
I did not get a single Black Friday deal.
Oh my
goodness.
There was
nothing that I felt like getting.
They haven't been good this year. I said I got a good one. I got the what was it? Legion of Superheroes for $11.49 off Amazon. So that was pretty good on Blu-ray. Yep. Never finished though.
I want to real quick welcome Philip A. Demick. Oh. I don't think I've seen that name in the chat before. I am so glad to see you here. Yes, we will absolutely be talking about that. We're going to
be talking about that in a bit.
We're going to be talking about Wizards of the Coast. We're going to be talking about NECA. We are going to be talking about a lot of
Ubisoft
bad business decisions.
Ubisoft. We got a doozy of an Ubisoft one tonight too. Yes, welcome, Deleted Scenes.
Absolutely do.
I'm telling you, I feel like right now more than ever, I'm like, well, we should be relieved, but I feel like we still have a bunch of crap to shovel out of, as what's his name on Twin Peaks would have said, right?
Shovel ourselves out of the crap, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like just entertainment. This has been a bad year for entertainment, I think. Am I wrong here?
It's definitely been challenging, but I do see the winds of change. They move very slowly, but they are moving.
I think I saw The Beekeeper earlier in the year, and that's still my favorite movie. Because
there you go.
All right, but welcome to Geeky Geezers, and what do we like to talk about?
We like to talk about the good old days because we have enough negativity in the news. We want to talk about Pac-Man fever. I remember this. This was at the dawn of video games.
Dawn of the 80s. This is 1980 this came out.
Yes.
I'm old enough to not think of Pac-Man as a retro game.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when it first came out in the arcades. I remember all the talk about it, a few minor urban legends about it and so forth.
Urban legends?
Yeah.
I didn't know there were urban legends about this game.
Minor ones. Bigger ones came for other games.
Is it the one about him? They wanted to call it Pac-Man, but then they were worried that people would scratch up part of the P, and it would be turned to an F. And as Scott Pilgrim said in Scott Pilgrim vs.
Was that not true? I thought that one was true.
It might be true, but it sounds like something that could have been an urban legend. Tetris is better than Pac-Man. Oh,
welcome, Wade.
You know,
yeah, well.
It precedes Tetris by a few years.
And the fact is that, and I forget which is which, the raster graphics versus the the vector graphics. Is that what it is? I don't know. I forget which one is
This
which.
isn't Vector, because Vector had a whole unique look to it. That was when they were trying to say, what are we going to do? We're going to go with, I'm assuming these are pixels in the Pac-Man game. Are we going to go with that, or are we going to go with vector graphics? And vector graphics, you could have like a lot of colors in them, but they were very smooth looking. They had like the original Star Wars arcade game. If you want a great example of a vector graphics game from back in the day, that's one to look for. But here we have Pac-Man. I still would argue this game holds up.
I agree. It's fairly simple. You can now get it literally in the exact form that the original one came out in various size consoles. You can get
miniatures,
a little tabletop one, miniature ones that are like the right size for your action figures if you want, but they're playable.
Or for your Mogwai. Or for your Mogwai.
Exactly.
I am going to drop a link for y'all. Free 80s arcade games.
Oh, there you go. So you can play some of these using emulators. Free.
I bet there's some good stuff there.
One sec.
I know you're a big fan of Berserk, right?
Netter knows the song. She also knows Pac-Man Fever.
Well,
that was a song. It was so big.
All right. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but since you already brought it up. Buckner and Garcia, Pac-Man Fever. You can check out a video on American Bandstand of them doing the Pac-Man Fever song. And instead of people doing like where they would light a lighter, to show support, they would make little Pac-Man things with their fingers.
Yes, exactly right.
Free games, 80s arcade. I'll look for that later, Netter. Thank you. But yeah,
it was Jerry Buckner and Gary Garcia. They had a whole album, and it was
called Pac-Man Fever.
It was called Pac-Man Fever. That was the big release on the radios.
Yes.
But so they're considered to be a one-hit wonder. But Netter had that album. They had a Berserk one on there, and several.
Did they have Frogger? They had a Frogger song.
Yes,
go Froggy, go. Yes.
Yeah.
But did you know the words to Pac-Man Fever, Troy or Netter? Did you? Just say
Netter did.
I did. I knew the words to all the songs on that album.
Yeah. I unfortunately would have to cheat. I actually have the lyrics in front of me. I got a pocket full of quarters, and I'm headed to the arcade. I don't have a lot of money, but I'm bringing everything I made. I got callus on my finger, and my shoulder's hurting too. I'm gonna eat them all up just as soon as they turn blue, because I've got Pac-Man Fever.
I love that. I love that dialogue because he would lose his money. He had to come back the next night, spend all his money made on his pizza route or whatever, right?
I remember when this was becoming, and what you would do is, as a kid, I'm talking like 8, 9 years old, Troy, asking grandma and mom for a quarter for the arcade game, and I remember my grandmother saying, "What is this, like kitty version of One Arm Bandit?" And my mom says, "Yeah, but he doesn't win anything.
Oh, that's
never gets the money back."
Oh, that's funny. GoldenEye N64 is better than Pac-Man. You could get Pac-Man on the N64. They released a napkin museum. It had Pac-Man, Ms. Pac-Man.
Yeah, that's like saying, a Maserati is better than a Model T Ford.
Let me tell you something.
I mean, let's be comparing apples and oranges.
Reworld gaming clips. I have to be perfectly honest with you. I played the when I had the virtual shot console, not virtual console, the whatever the Switch has now, where you have to pay extra money to do that weird subscription. And I tried playing GoldenEye, and I'm like, you can't play this with the Pro controller. But then I bought the N64 Switch controller, which is like a replica of the Nintendo 64 controller. Like I could finally play GoldenEye like I did back on the Nintendo 64, the way it was meant to play, with the Trident controller. And I said, how in the heck did I ever play this game with this kind of controller?
Right.
It was not. It just not good for first-person shooters. I'm sorry. Now, that's we'll do GoldenEye another time. Anyway, but we're here to talk about. In fact, we'll probably talk about the GoldenEye video game. We ever do the retro blasting follow-up with James Bond.
Oh, good point. Good point.
Pac-Man Pac-Man's a big deal, and people still play Pac-Man to this day. Look at this. Look at these kids in the arcade. Now, I know you were an arcade frequenter, and I'm sure the Pac-Man machine had lines around it, didn't it?
Well, I do remember during the height of Pac-Man fever, so to speak, it was just like this, where there were multiple cabinets of the same game.
Yes, multiple cabinets of the same game because it was that popular.
But here was something that was okay. So this is probably nothing new to the modern gamers that are used to their console games that have cutscenes, right?
Yeah,
well,
this had cutscenes. I don't have any.
It kind of had cutscenes.
I think this might be the first video game with cutscenes.
Exactly. I want to say it was every 3 levels. After you cleared 3 levels, you got what was called an intermission. It was just a short little animation. Yes, it had its own music, and it was Pac-Man chasing after the monsters chasing after him. And there was a bit of story that went into it. That's what I was alluding to when I was talking about the urban legends, and I use that very lightly. I don't mean that in the Polybius type level of urban legend about video games. But as Pac-Man got its sequel later on, Ms. Pac-Man, which also had intermissions, and it was talking about them falling in love and meeting and then having babies on a later level and stuff. There was all this story that went into these very, very simple. Yeah, Ms. Pac-Man. That's the scene from the first after you've cleared 3 levels in Ms. Pac-Man. They meet and fall in love like this.
Yeah.
And there was talk about what the intermissions were at further levels, and the story got more and more elaborate to the point where I'm like, I don't even buy that. And you are not that good at this game to have ever gotten that.
Were they drinking Taster's Choice? I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's like
a 90s Anthony Stewart head. Yeah, yes. Exactly.
He'd be the voice of Pac-Man. That's who they should get to be the voice of Pac-Man.
I got that reference. Yeah, very good. Very good.
But yeah, let's go back though. But Pac-Man was huge. This was the game everybody wanted to play. You had Pac-Man cereal. Remember the Pac-Man cereal? That is sweet.
Actually, I did have. I did get. And I don't remember what it was. There was a premium that was involved in the particular box that I was getting that I wanted. I didn't care much for it, but I did get it.
Sweet corn and marshmallows.
Yes.
Yeah, I never got that.
Yeah, no, you're probably better off.
I did drop the link to both the free arcade games, which includes Pac-Man.
Yep.
And Mrs. Pac-Man.
Yep.
As well as a link to the album that's available on YouTube.
There you go.
And of course, there were a lot of big games at this time. There was Missile Command, Centipede. There was Donkey Kong.
Of course, Space Invaders.
Space Invaders. Later on, Namco brought out Dig Dug and Galaga. They were big hits as well. Dig Dug was a favorite of mine. One of my another favorite old arcade game of mine was Arkanoid, which was like a better version of Breakout.
I only ever played Dig Dug on Commodore.
Did you watch the Pac-Man? Oh, you played Dig Dug on Commodore. Oh, that's interesting. I had it on the Atari computer. We probably had similar versions.
There you go.
Yeah. Dara, did you watch the Pac-Man Christmas special?
I probably did. But this cartoon, I definitely remember. That was a Saturday morning cartoon, which gave you this whole lore. Yes, Super Pac-Man. See, that was one of the things that came up in. I don't remember if that started. Yeah, that was based on one of those intermissions, because there was, after Pac-Man had eaten the blue pill so that he could eat the monsters, then he ate something else and he became huge and he was invulnerable, and that's where the whole concept of Super Pac-Man came from.
Terminator 2 on Sega. That was actually based on a very popular arcade game with the guns, and yet you would go in there and you'd shoot the Terminators on the screen. I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the lyrics of the song, right?
Yes, exactly.
And you sing along.
And Nate is saying that he had Pac-Man cereal, Mr. T, Droids. Droids was my favorite because it didn't have any of those marshmallows. I hated the marshmallows.
I remember Droid cereal. Did it have like an 8? Were they 8 shaped or something, as I recall?
I actually don't remember what they were shaped like. I was buying them
C3POs, C3POs. That's what they're called, C3POs.
C3POs.
If that's the same droid serial I'm thinking of.
And
I enjoyed it. My favorite was
and
the
they had the
Batman
Star Wars masks on the back, so I got.
remembered that. Yeah,
And
was there a Luke mask? I think.
I don't remember
Maybe it
Luke.
was a
I remember
C3PO. Maybe
C3PO and
Darth Vader.
Chewbacca. I think there were some others, but there was trying to. What was the other cereal? Oh, there was a Donkey Kong cereal, and it was basically the same flavor as the droid cereals, but the cereal pieces were in the shape of barrels.
Interesting.
I remember that one.
Yep.
Yeah, that had a good commercial actually. Yeah. But that's from the cartoon series about Pac-Man.
Yep.
I remember being Saturday morning. Let me guess, the guy on the right, he's like the too cool for school guy, likes fashion.
He was the character that got introduced late. I think the two characters on the right were the kids, which are of course based on the whole
of course.
A Mr. and Ms. Pac-Man kind of thing, and I think he came a little bit later. I don't really remember.
But of course, I remember when they had Pac-Man as a character, when they added him to a character in that Super Smash Brothers game, where it started out with Nintendo characters beating each other up, but then Nintendo let other game characters into it, and Pac-Man's one of them. What I thought was cool, when you play as Pac-Man, he looks like this version of Pac-Man, with the arms and legs and stuff. But when you do a super move, like the screen goes blank, and the big Pac-Man, that's just the one from the game, comes out with the flapping paws.
I love that.
Very neat.
Brilliant.
Very neat. But there's the board game. There was a Pac-Man board game.
Yeah, that I've seen that. I never played it.
Super
what
Pac-Man.
You would do is there was, I remember the commercials for it, and you can kind of see it on the right-hand side there. There were these pieces that you moved around, and you'd pick up marbles as you went around the board.
Oh, that's interesting. That's kind of
it had a little mechanism in them with a ratchet that would pick up the little marbles as you go around.
Now this would be a Kickstarter game instead of being something they would just
probably.
They did that. Apparently they made a board game out of the first Resident Evil game, but it was done as a Kickstarter campaign. And I'm like, wow, really? I'm like, part of me wonders if it was any good, but it was but there's the album, as you saw. I think the original album had a different cover, but this is like a newer version. But look at that. He's coming after him. But we have to mention this. We have to mention this, the infamy. So I remember reading one review of the Star Wars Holiday Special, and some guy, as a child, I hadn't remember being so disappointed by something since I got Pac-Man for the Atari 2600 on Christmas morning. This is an infamously bad port of a popular arcade game.
And believe it or not, I did have this, and I did play it, and I kind of felt it sucked. Here's another thing about this. It was bad. There's no doubt about it. It was definitely pushing the graphics and sound abilities
of the Atari 2600.
Incredibly annoying. But once you could get through a level, it didn't get harder and harder as you went. It was just doing it over and over and over again.
Oh, no.
And it was just boring as hell.
Was there no fruit? We can't afford to put the fruit pieces in there.
No. There kind of was, but instead of the fruit appearing beneath the square and then moving around, it was just static, and it was just this big box that appeared.
Oh, boy.
It was worth some points or whatever, and it was terrible. You'll notice that even the map is laid out completely different.
No.
You'd go the top and the bottom were the exits. There weren't ones on the left and the right.
Yeah.
It was just terrible. And there was no color for you didn't see any different colors between the ghosts. Part of the strategy with the arcade game was that the different colored ghost monsters had different behaviors.
Yes, they did. And
one of them, I can't really remember. One of them followed you. One of them, took a very specific path. I don't remember.
I guess it was
some
early
were faster
AI
than others.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was kind
Inky,
of
Blinky,
sort of.
Pinky, and Clyde. It was fun. I was taking
Yep.
a geek quiz on how nerdy are you, and it's like, can you name the 4 ghosts in Pac-Man? I said
Yeah.
yes. Can you
Yes.
name what is James T. Kirk's middle name? I said Tiberius.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
all these different. But look at this, man. I mean, and to be
Yeah.
fair, I'd heard a horror story that they stuck one programmer with the unfortunate task because
Yes.
back in those days when Atari had their home console, it wasn't like, hey, Namco, do you want to make your Pac-Man game for our console? No. Atari would buy the rights to the arcade game and make the port themselves.
Yes.
And sometimes these were successful, sometimes not as successful. This one was a disaster. This is why Activision got in so much trouble, because Activision was making cartridges for the Atari illegally
Yes.
by putting them out, because they weren't getting Atari's permission to release cartridges for the 2600. Of course, a lot of the Activision's games turned out really well. Like Pitfall and
that one was a
Kaboom and
brilliant
things
one.
like that. And
that
go ahead.
Part of the problem for Atari, because some of the Activision games were better than, like, for example, Pac-Man. But here's the thing. Yeah, the guy that they asked to do this, they gave him some severe limitations, and I don't know enough about the cartridges, but I know that there was 2 different memory sets for the cartridges.
Yeah.
And if he had the other one, he'd have had memory.
They didn't give him the premium cartridge for Pac-Man?
No. So he got just the bare bones, and that's why it was so dead simple. But on top of that, he couldn't even come up with clever workarounds for things, because they put him on such a short deadline in order to get it out for Christmas.
This is terrible.
So there is, and you can, there's people that have done the research that have videos up on YouTube. You can look it up. Somebody did an emulator using the same restrictions of Pac-Man, but he was able to spend all the time he wanted because it's a labor of love for him.
Yeah.
And he created a really pretty good port of Pac-Man. And then he did it again by, doubling the memory he had access to, as if it was the and it's like they could have done this if they, had wanted to.
Word to the wise, Atari, back in 1980, whenever this was, you use the premium cartridge. You can charge more for this game. You can charge double for this game. People would have paid it, but they would have liked a good product to play as. Instead, you released a crappy game that was another one of these things that led to the crash. The video game crash, the home console crash. And what's sad was they eventually released a Ms. Pac-Man.
5200.
Well, they also released a Ms. Pac-Man for the Atari 2600, which is a lot more playable than this. It's actually not bad.
It was a better game. Yeah, it was.
Here's Pac-Man for the Atari 5200, much better. See that?
That really looks like the arcade game.
Looks better. It's not quite as good, because even the arcade game, like I'm going to show you the NES version in a minute too, and even that not quite as good. See, so is the wide board. They're not going tall; they're going wide, so it's not completely arcade accurate, but it's good enough. I think this was the version you could play on the Atari computer and maybe the Commodore computer as well. We already talked about Ms. Pac-Man, but I got it.
Yeah, look at that.
This I think,
or is this the arcade?
This is the arcade.
Okay.
No, this isn't the home console version, but
wow, that's pretty impressive. Yeah.
The arcade version, though, from what I recall, this wasn't made in Japan. This was made by American programmers that were trying to make a better version of Pac-Man in their spare time. And
which is interesting. If you look at the and again, this is a different maze from the original Pac-Man, and you'll notice that it's like a double door on either side.
Yeah. The mazes would change every couple of levels. You get a new maze. The original Pac-Man had the same maze throughout the entire game.
Yep.
This, from what I remember, the guys that made this, I think eventually Namco said, we're not going to fight them. Why don't we just license it from them and put it out as Ms. Pac-Man? Or I think it was originally Midway that put it out, and then Namco bought it. But of course, Namco doesn't fully own the rights to Ms. Pac-Man because they don't have the rights to it anymore. They got very angry because I think Act Games swooped in and picked up the rights to Ms. Pac-Man out from under them, and they said no more Ms. Pac-Man in collections. And now whenever there's another Pac-Man game they release that was supposed to have Ms. Pac-Man in it, now they call her Pac-Mom, which is like like, no.
That's kind of funny, actually.
Kind of dumb, actually. But okay, whatever. Yeah, I know it's funny. It's a play on words, but no.
Yeah.
I hope they get the rights to this sorted out someday and just anyway. But for a while you could buy this on most consoles. Ms. Pac-Man. Pac-Man you can still get anywhere. This is the Nintendo Entertainment System version of Pac-Man. Little different than the Atari version. They did something smart here. On the right, they have the marquee with all the score stuff, right? And how many fruits you have. And then on the left, you have the kind of more something more akin to what the arcade would look like.
Yeah.
So that was clever what
that
they
is
did.
Kind of neat.
Not a bad version of Pac-Man. I still think the arcade version is best of all. That's the way you want to experience it.
Of course.
And yeah, you can still get Pac-Man on most anything. You own a modern game console, it's available in some way, shape, or form. And they do new versions of Pac-Man all the time. They have Pac-Man. I'm not going to say this out loud, okay? But I'm sorry.
I was thinking that too, Curtis. I thought it too.
All right, Pac-Man Fever, it was a thing, and for a while it was the arcade game. I would argue maybe throughout the 80s it might have been the arcade game, if I'm being honest here. I mean, Donkey Kong was big, other arcade games were big, but this was the biggest one.
Something that hit the zeitgeist, and there was immediate nostalgia for it. Yeah, so it was like, you know, even though they were making better and better games and people were moving on, they always remembered Pac-Man fondly. You didn't even get into some of the marketing they had for it. They had Pac-Man on everything. They had it on the Trapper Keepers and the pencils and the pens and the erasers and all the kinds of things. They had figurines. They had all kinds of plushies.
Yeah,
it was lunch boxes. It was crazy. And you know, I was talking about. They've ported the arcade, the exact arcade, and they've miniaturized it to different size cabinets. But even back in the 80s, they had miniature handheld. They weren't the same. They were single color. They were much simpler.
My cousin had one for Donkey Kong. I remember thinking it was impressive at the time, but yeah.
And actually, I think Pac-Man is the one that lends itself best to that kind of a simplified kind of thing. But still, everyone wanted to play Pac-Man, and they wanted to be able to play it, if possible, at home without having to pump quarters into it all the time.
It was in Tron. I think there was a scene in Flynn's arcade, I think both in the remake, where they just have all the big arcade games at the time next to what is it, Space Paradroid? So you'd have like your other popular arcade games.
No, what he's referring to is in the original Tron.
Yes.
There's a background shot within when the MCU is talking, or what his name is talking to the MCU. It's in the grid behind him. You can see.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, it's a little nod to the arcade Easter games at the time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But and it's weird. I remember a lot of the arcade games. They always had these glow. Because if you look at this is not really as accurate. Because I always felt like the arcade games almost glowed. Like the things coming up out of the board were almost glowing. And when I saw Tron with a lot of the darkness and these glowing characters, that's sort of what I thought back to things like Pac-Man or some of the
and that was very certainly what the inspiration was. Yeah.
Like these characters created out of light that you could operate around and go against. But
I'll tell you, once you saw Tron and you start thinking about, especially like the combat games, and you imagine these characters being real and being manipulated by you, it's like, I'm killing them.
Well, you feel kind of bad for the programs. And I have to say, it drives me crazy. The last great Disney animated series, which was Tron Uprising, where for a Disney show, this was actually rather violent because characters would get killed or de-res on the show all the time. Yeah. Like there's one episode where, you know, this one guy, the good guys, I guess, facilitated this woman who I guess was going against us, wanted to get reintegrated back into the system. And I guess the guy decided to help her out because she didn't want to be part of the resistance. And then when she comes back, the evil general, played by Lance Henriksen, he puts his hand on her head and de-reses her at the end of the episode and disintegrates her. So it was to show how her trying to get back in was futile. They're still going to kill her, you know, but
exactly.
She should have stayed with the resistance. No, but it was or the uprising, I should say. But anyway, classic games. I do miss I do miss Pac-Man. Well, I don't miss Pac-Man because Pac-Man is alive and well with us. I miss Pac-Man because they don't put her on anything anymore.
I miss the kind of mentality that went into making games like this that were just fun. You know,
it's still there around a lot of the independent game designers. It's still there.
True.
So let's not. Gaming is not as in dire situations as other media, but well, we have a lot more gaming stories tonight. I don't like doing all the gaming stories. I'd rather be talking about Hollywood, but they kind of fell on their ass in the last few weeks. Excuse my language. Sorry.
They kind of have. But before we get to that, a little sad news. This came in too late for us to get it in last week.
Yeah, hold on. Let me just grab my notes. But I'm sure you grew up with him, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I used to watch. Well, funny enough, it was it? It wasn't. Was it the dating game or was it the match game? I forget which.
Was that the one?
Oh, Love Connection. Love
Connection. Oh my god.
Yeah, I remember watching that on a daily basis. When I was just bored during the day in the summer times that I spent in Ohio at the marina.
That sure would get a little racy.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right.
We were making whoopee.
But it was prime time. I mean, it was. Yeah. Then again, the 70s and 80s were a different time. You could get away with a lot more back then.
Yeah. So hold on. Sorry.
We weren't so sensitive.
Everything is sensitive now. For now, we'll see. Maybe we'll be going through a change in the next year. But in remembrance, game show host Chuck Woolery of Wheel of Fortune, Love Connection dies at 83. Chuck Woolery, former game show host of Wheel of Fortune, Love Connection, and Scrabble, has died at age 83. Woolery died in his home in Texas in the presence of his wife, Kristen. His friend and podcast co-host Mark Young told the Associated Press, along with his wife, Woolery survived by his sons Michael and Sean and his daughter Melissa. Chuck Woolery was without a doubt the real deal. Our 7 years as the original host and hostess on Wheel of Fortune were like magic. Susan Stafford, who was Chuck Woolery's co-host on Wheel of Fortune, said in the statement to Fox News, "Our deep friendship continued after our time on the show." The statement continued, "He was an original. There was no one like Chuck. He had so much energy and was the same warm, caring, genuine person off stage as he was on. He was very spiritual, and we shared a true love for God, which made it even more worthwhile. So grateful to know I will see him again." Woolery was inducted into the American TV Game Show Hall of Fame in 2007 and earned a Daytime Emmy nomination in 1978. In 1983, Woolery began an 11-year stint as host of Love Connection, during which time he coined the phrase, "We'll be back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds."
2 and 2. Yeah, 2 and 2.
In 1984, he began hosting Scrabble, simultaneously hosting both game shows until 1990. Other shows he hosted, including Lingo, Greed, and the Chuck Woolery Show, as well as the short-lived syndicated revival of the dating game from 1998 to 2000. In 1992, he played himself in 2 episodes of Melrose Place. Woolery was the subject of the game show's network's first attempt at a reality show, Chuck Woolery Naturally Stoned, which premiered in 2003 and lasted 6 episodes. I don't know what that's about. Maybe it was him. He had a second career as a Mason.
Yeah, don't know.
Okay. Anyway, Woolery began his TV career in Wheel of Fortune, which debuted in January 6, 1975. I keep forgetting there was a guy before Pat Sajak.
Yes.
I didn't realize.
That was him.
Okay, yeah. Wheel of Fortune started life as Shopper's Bazaar after Woolery appeared on the Merv Griffin Show, singing Delta Dawn. Griffin asked that he host the new show with Stafford. NBC initially passed, but they changed it to Wheel of Fortune and were approved. That's a much better title. After a few years, Woolery demanded a raise of $500,000 a year, and what host Peter Marshall was making on Hollywood Squares. Griffin rejected the request and replaced Woolery with Pat Sajak, who, along with Vanna White, are most commonly associated with the show. Woolery, who was born in Ashland, Kentucky, served in the U.S. Navy before attending college. He played double bass in a folk trio before starting the psychedelic rock duo, the Avant-Garde, in 1967, while he worked as a truck driver to support himself as a musician. Following his TV career, Woolery began podcasting. He told the New York Times that he described himself as a gun rights activist, a conservative, libertarian, and constitutionalist, noting that he had not revealed his politics in liberal Hollywood over fear of retribution. You bad person, you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess he cling to his guns and his religion, right?
Exactly right. It just makes me like him all that much more. And I got to be honest, to a degree, I respect the heck out of him for not making it a big part of his. I just wish a lot more of these celebrities would just shut up and do their job.
Yeah, just let us have a good time. You're here to entertain. And right now, Hollywood is entertaining because everybody's good. I'm not going there. Chuck Woolery, he was a trailblazer. Yes, he was. We'll be right back in 2 and 2. But yeah,
2 and 2.
Rest in peace. Maybe to the. I don't know. I was gonna say you went to the big game show in the sky, but I don't know if they have game shows in heaven, right? But I don't know.
I don't know. I kind of hope not. But
no, there was a story. There's a wonderful ghost story or something about do they have baseball in heaven? And one of us dies first. Yeah, these two old men, they're in a room, right? And they're saying, well, one of us dies first, we can come back and let the other one know if there's baseball in heaven. And then his friend in the hospital room, he dies, and then he comes to him and says, great news, Fred, they have baseball in heaven. Got good news and bad news. He says, what's the good news? They have baseball in heaven. And what's the bad news? You're playing first 2 days from now.
Oh, jeez.
I didn't tell it as well as they did in the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark book, but I like that.
That's actually kind of funny, though. Yeah.
But rest in peace, Chuck Woolery. And now to snap us right back to reality. Oh, no man.
I again, this is where we're gonna have a lot of articles tonight about gaming, and most of them are not terribly positive. This one I did not shorten the URL because I want to hold up Smash JT, who is doing a bang up job on bringing us exclusive information about some of these gaming snafus. Let's get into it.
Yeah, he was talking about Asmongold mentioned it too on his. It's been a disaster. I want to say they need a game console where when you turn it on, the controller takes a pint of blood out of you next. That should be a feature.
I mean, they already want to reach it directly into your pocketbook and just siphon money off every time you play. So yeah, why not just take your lifeblood too?
This is so bad because Ubisoft, of course, has gotten into trouble this year over Star Wars Outlaws not doing so hot. Then you had Assassin's Creed Shadows because Japan gets upset when you mess around with their history because other countries care about accurate history, unlike Ridley Scott. But anyway, we'll get to him later. Okay. Gaming. Ubisoft adds DLC to Avatar, forces base game owners to buy it. I know. It's hard to believe, but Ubisoft has yet again found another way to go and outdo themselves, proving once more why they've earned the extreme hatred of gamers worldwide. Players of Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora are discovering an issue. They're being locked out of their base game save files unless they shell out for the Skybreaker DLC. That's right. So Ubisoft effectively holding your progress hostage unless they pay extra. Screw the mob. This is the modern day age of extortion. We thought Ubisoft couldn't sink any lower thing again. So basically, you buy this full price game, I guess, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, and they release DLC for this. This is paid DLC. It's what they used to have on PCs back in the day. You'd buy an expansion disc or something.
Yeah.
But you'd get a physical expansion disc for your game, and that would add more stuff. Then they started doing it as downloadable content. All right. But now.
Right. So what it originally was instead of putting out a whole new game, it was just a few side quests that augmented the current game. So you buy
it's using the same engine, no point in putting out another game, right?
Exactly. And it maybe opened up a little extra area or something that you could go into, a couple new maps or whatever. When it becomes streaming, same thing. But then they had these packages of DLC where it was like, well, I mean, I'm thinking especially of things like Arkham games and whatnot. Well, you want your Batman to be able to wear the Adam West costume. Well, you can download it for this much. And if you want him to wear the Michael Keaton outfit, or you can have the skin of the Batmobile look like the Michael Keaton 89 Batmobile, and it's a nominal fee, and if it's something you want, you buy it. If you don't, you don't. But
you can still play your game.
Yeah.
You paid money
with or without it, you were still playing your game. This is literally extortion, and I don't see how this is even legal.
I want someone from Ubisoft, and he says, "Hey, I can't play the base game. Can you release a patch?" And I want the person on the other side to say, "Give me your money. Give me your money." They want to reach in and just start pulling money out of your wallet and say, "You're good till the next DLC comes
I
out."
hate to say this out loud and put it out into the ether, but there will come a day where you try to, contact their help department, and it'll be, $5 for the first minute and 99 cents for each additional minute.
Okay, so shout out to this is from Smash JT, so might be using his own voice. Okay, but
Yes.
shout out to Andy Bellon, AK Touch Me Pet. Oh well,
yeah.
Well, you can read his hashtag. Who tipped me off about the reports that began flooding Reddit shortly after the Skybreaker DLC launch. I've been watching some of your vids lately and wanted to send you a huge tip about Ubisoft committing outright fraud against customers. They made it impossible to play the base Avatar game without buying the DLC. Paywalled behind DLC, link below. So let's say you bought this game when it launched, right? And you're trying to get to the base game, and maybe you'll decide to buy the DLC, maybe you won't. But point is, you paid full price for this game. They released this DLC, and now you're locked out of the base game because they probably released a patch to make the DLC work. And now that patch makes you not able to play the regular game, I'm assuming, without the DLC, if I'm getting this right. This sounds awfully...
Welcome, Outlaw Bill. Thanks for coming by.
Welcome. This all sounds familiar to the Star Wars Outlaws bug that required all early access users to start over again fresh with their progress in a new save file after an update corrupted the future progress of an old save file. Come on, Ubisoft, can we just get one day without hearing you bone gamers in a different way? We're collectively begging you. The issue on here isn't isolated, though. There have been upwards of 50% or more of the game and were forced into new up and pay scenario. So they were already halfway through the game, and then they had to... Okay. Even worse, some who bought the DLC to resolve the issue claim to still have their saves locked and broken.
Yeah. That's even worse. Okay, fine. I'll pay for the
I'll pay the $20 for the
and now
DLC.
You still can't play it. It's like, this is just ridiculous.
I'm surprised. We talked about the Pac-Man disaster years ago, but has anything changed, really? Is history repeating itself here?
Well, I mean, at least with the Pac-Man, it was just a crappy game. It was playable, even if it was crappy, and it didn't, break on you, and you had to pay extra money to get it fixed.
Oh, I love this one headline in the article. Why Ubisoft suck. Let's not pretend this is an isolated incident either. Ubisoft's been in hot water for years, plagued by patterns of poor decision-making and anti-consumer practices, from overstuffing their games with grindy microtransactions to ignoring important player feedback. The company seems perpetually out of touch. The latest fiasco is just another chapter in Ubisoft's long-ass history of disappointing its fans. Yeah, I think the one YouTuber mentioned earlier, he said, I'm going to test this out. Let's go on the Steam store and buy this Avatar game, right? And he buys it, and then suddenly when he buys it, he has to also create a separate Ubisoft account to play it. And he got really angry. He said, I already have a Steam account. I shouldn't have to now create another account just to play. And he's like, you know what? No, I'm done. I'm because Steam offers refunds. I'm just going to get it refunded. He was mad at that point. It's just terrible. But yeah, I don't know. Does this surprise you?
Not at all. I can't stand these guys.
It just costs more now. I'm telling you, it's like we can't. I mean, I've never bought an Avatar game because I'm not a huge fan of that series, but I don't know. Ubisoft, all I want is remastered version of Brothers in Arms games. I want the remastered Prince of Persia game they were supposedly working on, but I don't think that's going to happen now. They'll probably mess it up.
My hope is that the licensees of these games will look at Ubisoft and go, maybe this isn't the best, financial deal for us. Well, maybe we go with someone else who's not doing this to people.
Here's what's depressing. When they were licensing out Star Wars originally, I think Lucasfilm picked EA. And I think I heard some guy online said he actively cried when he heard EA was getting the Star Wars license. I think they did better later on with the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order games. They people seem to like those, but originally they were doing that the Star Wars Battlefront remakes, which had all that loot boxing stuff, which happened around the same time as Return of the Jedi. I remember Oscar Isaac he got all excited. He bought the Star Wars Battlefront game because he was in the sequel movies, and he's like, "Wait, there's no story mode; it's online only." He was not happy about that at the time.
I'll tell you something else. We brought you the news a while back that Star Trek Online was being sold, or actually, I guess the parent company, Cryptic or whatever, was being sold to somebody else. And this was like, more than a year ago. And there's been no news since. And I'm an active player on it. I got nothing. All I know is I'm watching the devs that I know of just one by one being let go from the company. And I'm like, this isn't great, but at least they're not having problems like this, things getting broken, and I mean, not any worse than it ever was, I should say.
I mean, could you imagine you pay $60 or whatever you paid for this game, and then they don't let you play it because they want you to buy the DLC? This is just, it's extortion. You're extorting.
It literally is extortion. Customers. It's like, I know you bought this game, but now we've decided we want another hit of your money. So, buy this new pink nail polish color for your avatar for, $2 download, or you can't play anymore.
Is it
okay, fine. I'll take the nail polish. Yeah, well, you still can't play. Good, doesn't work.
You know what's funny? You had mentioned those Arkham games, right? Mm-hmm. You can buy now like the Game of the Year editions of those games when they're on sale for like nothing. I think I got all of them for like $10, and they came with all of the DLC. I mean, granted, it's digital only, but I mean, it's like I got a ridiculous deal on those. Steam. Now we're on to Steam next.
Yeah, we were just. I feel like we were kind of pivoting into that anyway.
I don't know. Anyway. But, the antitrust lawsuit against Steam is now a class action, and that could have big repercussions for Valve.
Yeah.
I always thought Valve were better than most, but maybe not. Let's get into this. The antitrust lawsuit filed against Valve by Wolfire Games in 2022 has now been certified as a class action, and that could be a real headache for Valve. Instead of applying to Wolfire and Dark Cat Studios, which filed a separate antitrust lawsuit in 2022, the action will now apply to virtually anyone who's sold games on Steam since 2017.
Yeah.
Overgrowth developer Wolfire originally filed suit against Valve in April 2021, contending that Valve uses Steam's dominance in the PC gaming marketplace to suppress competition and extract an unfairly high cut of sales made through the store. The case was dismissed in November of the same year, but Wolfire was given 30 days to amend and refile its complaint, and so it did, bringing the case back to life in 2022. In July of that year, Wolfire's suit was combined with a similar antitrust lawsuit filed by Dark Cat. The suit has ground on through various bits of legal wrangling since, but this latest decision is interesting because it broadens the action to include, just about everyone. The ruling via games industry certifies the class as all persons or entities who, directly or through an agent, paid a commission to Valve in connection with the sale or use of a game on the Steam platform on or after January 28, 2017. So the commission would be Valve's cut on sales made through Steam, which starts at 30% and drops to 20% as sales increase. Valve defended the percentage as industry standard when Wolfire's lawsuit was first filed, but that's no longer the case. The Epic Games Store and Microsoft both take just 12% of sales made through their stores. There's still a long way to go before this is all settled, but the class action certification means that if Wolfire and Dark Cat eventually prevail, Valve could be on the hook for a lot of money in compensation payments. Speculatively, that might be enough to inspire some fresh thinking about Steam's revenue sharing policies. I have a question for you, though. Do they have the right to take whatever percentage they want, or you can go elsewhere?
Well, that's what antitrust is all about, right? Lester San Jose is pointing out that there are other marketplaces for these games, but that's not really what an antitrust is. It doesn't mean you are the only game in town. Okay. That's like saying YouTube is not a monopoly because you can go to X, you can go to the Green Machine, you can go to these other places. They dominate the space. And for certain things, they are the biggest game in town. So yes, you can go elsewhere, but you cannot get the same access as you would through Steam. You cannot get the same reach as you would through YouTube, for example. So it is absolutely appropriate to bring an antitrust against them if they are using that advantage that they have to leverage the market against the little guy, so to speak.
You know, Nintendo used to do this back in the old days. Nintendo basically said, hi, we want to release our game on your console and release it on competition. Then you can't release your game on our console. Like, they were very like, you know, it wasn't just about the games Nintendo made and published themselves. If you were a third-party licensor, you had to be very careful around Nintendo, because they would basically tell you, no, you can't go release that game on Sega.
Yeah.
They were very about that. That eventually cracked as Sega got more market share. Nintendo realizes they couldn't strong arm people. I remember the president of Nintendo got the president of Namco, the Pac-Man people. He got furious with Nintendo over something. That's why a lot of early Namco games came out under competition and not Nintendo. Except Sans for that Pac-Man game I was showing you, that made it on the NES.
I think what Jesse's saying here is very funny. He says the best part about Steam is that the name matches its product. They don't exist in physical form. Yes, that's true.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, PC gaming was always a bit wonky, though, because it was always on floppy disks, right? Which I guess the game was on there, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you had it in a physical form that you could write to your hard drive. If your hard drive ever got corrupted, you could lose your save games, but you could always get a new hard drive and reboot, from the disks. And, actually in some cases you could even save your save games to a floppy, so that even if your hard drive did get corrupted, you could still, back up the games.
I did something interesting over the weekend in regards to that. There's this game called Owl's Awakening, and apparently it was like an indie developed game, but they actually made an old 8-bit Nintendo version of it that, actually came out in a physical cartridge and you could play on an original NES. But that cartridge is worth a lot of money now. You can't buy it, but they also sold another version of it, which came with like a thumb drive and a manual, and on the thumb drive was a ROM file for this NES game. And if you have an NES emulator, you can play this ROM file on it. So I'm thinking, I thought for $20, why don't I pick that up? And if I ever do my dream of taking all my NES games and sticking them on an EverDrive through a ROM, making ROMs out of the stuff I actually own and putting it on putting it all in one cartridge to play on my high def NES, I figured maybe I can just add this Owl's Awakening to it. And I officially own it. I'm not ripping it off, because I bought an official digital version on a thumb drive. We'll see if this was a mistake, but it's an experiment I'm going to try one day. But I know that just reminded me of that. Anyway, but Steam could be in some trouble, but they are the most popular PC platform. I suspect that's why Microsoft was pushing Game Pass. They were trying to compete with Steam on some level. But actually, I hear a lot of good things about Good Old Games. Actually, they have a lot of good stuff on there. In fact, they have the original Resident Evil games on there, the classics, which I hope might drop a hint to Capcom. Guys, remaster those classic Resident Evil games. I'd like to play the original ones again. But all right. But that's Steam. We'll be keeping an eye on that as it goes through. If these indie developers win this case, that might be a big deal. Moving on to Call of Cthulhu. Is it Cthulhu or Cthulhu? Because I've heard people say it both ways. I've always said Cthulhu.
I would argue that it's not truly pronounceable by the human tongue, so you get as close as you can.
All right, because when I was growing up, it was always Cthulhu. Then I watched Real Ghostbusters, and they were pronouncing it Cthulhu in that one episode with Cthulhu.
But then again, I think the TH and the T sound, it's the difference between American English and British English.
Yes, I guess so. Well, that's interesting, because knowing Lovecraft, he might have gone with the British pronunciation.
Possibly, yeah.
KSCM, we had mentioned them a while back. What was that on? Oh, that was on horror-themed Scary Games. We did our Scary Games, and you had mentioned, I think, brought up some of their stuff. Yeah. KSCM, makers of the Call of Cthulhu. Oh, no, you mentioned Arkham House. That was a different company.
It was Arkham Horror, the board game, is what I was talking about. But that's
right, and that's KSCM.
I don't know if they're related to KSCM or not.
Well, KSCM's been around for a while.
They have been for almost as long as D&D has been around. They're the ones that got the rights to the Lovecraft mythology for the role playing game, which of course leads to the whole story about the use and the inclusion of the Cthulhu mythos characters in the deities and demigods. The first edition from Dungeons and Dragons, and TSR got sued, and so they had to stop putting Cthulhu and the mythos characters into their future versions. But I have the book myself, and then in the 90s, there was a deal made between Chaosium and Wizard of the Coast where Chaosium put out a splat book that could be used with Dungeons and Dragons that included all of the stuff you needed to play a Call of Cthulhu game in Dungeons and Dragons. So
interesting.
There you go. I got that book too.
Interesting. Okay, great. KSCM, makers of the Call of Cthulhu RPG, have now entered the woke fray. This is from Fan Post with their latest offerings in this series, Cthulhu by Gaslight, Investor's Guide, adding a full chapter of LGBTQ to their game setting. The Call of Cthulhu is a horror role-playing game based on the H.P. Lovecraft story of the same name. The game was first developed in the early 1980s as the tabletop game craze hit the success after the success of Dungeons and Dragons. Games generally have taken players taking on the roles of ordinary people who get trapped within a realm of darkness, and the games unfold in mysteries where they progressively get more horror-orientated. Ex-user Magic Man first pointed out the new Cthulhu by Gaslight book has a full LGBTQI plus section listed in its table of contents. He posted the table saying, "I don't understand why KSCM has been adding LGBTQI plus sections to their setting guidebooks recently. First it started with Regency Cthulhu, and now this. At least it made sense in Berlin Wicked City." Let me see. It was followed by several commenters talking about how ridiculous it is to have such a section in a Victorian era setting. One user quipped in the comments, Sex Society, page 84, LGBTQ plus Victorians. Why don't they have a section how early 20th century women didn't have the right to vote, and many of them preferred it that way too? While they're
exactly.
Well, here's the thing. It's interesting to bring up Victorian era. I once listened to a play about Oscar Wilde. Of course, Oscar Wilde wrote plays, but someone did a play about him and about how he went to trial for, having relations with young men. But the weird thing they mentioned about Oscar Wilde at the time didn't consider himself gay because gay wasn't a thing.
Right.
Even though you would have, he was married, he had a family, but then he also would have dalliances with young men. But he didn't see himself as gay because just being gay wasn't a thing.
Right.
So I don't even know why there would be this stuff in Victorian era England. I mean, this is
historians, reenactors, and whatnot have all really dug into all of this stuff. And this is way beyond anything that belongs in a role-playing game like this. I mean, this would be, and it's funny because if you look at the chapters for the book that this article's talking about, this LGBTQ chapter comes right after a general sex chapter that again does not belong in there unless you're planning to put in a chapter about the workforce and the economy and bathroom habits.
What are they talking about? Yes,
how to brush your teeth. I mean, these are all basic things that are elements of life that an individual. You don't usually role play these things. These are the things where, in between adventures, you assume you have dinner, you go to the bathroom, you sleep. You don't talk about what you dream about when you go to sleep even. You use it as a game mechanic. I'm going to sleep for 8 hours. That means I can heal so many points. I can get back so much sanity, blah, 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 blah. You don't go into these kinds of nail trimming and, armor buffing and,
Why do they have to turn all these things into dating sims?
Because that's what these people, this is all that they
Make
understand.
a dating sim game then. Make a romance theme game.
This is their identity. And they bring this identity politics, as they call it, is all that these people understand. They are not gamers, they are activists. They are going and getting these jobs in the entertainment industry, in gaming, and every other place to make sure that everybody accepts them and knows that they exist and normalizes it. And it's like, nobody cares. We really don't. And at our table, when we play Call of Cthulhu, if we want to have gay characters, we're going to have gay characters. We don't need special rules for it.
You don't need them telling us what needs to be in the game. You can add that stuff yourself, yes.
And if you're going to argue that this alternate reality, you know, being gay is out there and in the open, that's fine. I'm going to have my own, you know, campaign world where I can change the history or not. I will say this, though, that whereas, for example, Dungeons and Dragons is literally fictional worlds, Call of Cthulhu is meant to be the real world, and all of this fantasy element is in the shadows, like it was always there and nobody knew about it. It was always secret, right? You know, kind of like the homosexual community back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oscar Wilde was on the down low. Ha ha ha. Good night, John. Don't know if I'll make it much longer either. Okay, fading, guys. Have to call tonight. Well, some of us have to keep going, but have a good night. JPRPH one. Troy, unless something is going to be a monster attack in the men's room. Yeah, we may have to know if it's
well, wait a minute.
Toilet paper is in there. You know,
if you're referring to a specific film, I can't remember the name of it, but drop the title because there is a movie which features J.K. Simmons as the voice of some eldritch creature.
That's funny.
That resides in the last stall in a bathroom at a roadside stop. And it gets really Cthulhu trippy and weird, but it is a really good movie. I think it was on that horror streaming channel.
Shudder?
I think it was Shudder. Yeah.
I'll look for it. I have a subscription.
Well, you know what? Real quick, let me look it up. Shudder. What was it called? Is that
what you're looking up?
Was it called Glorious? Was that it? Yes.
No,
it was called Glorious from 2022.
I'll
definitely check it out. It is weird.
Okay.
As you would expect from you know, it's not really Cthulhu mythos, but it definitely draws on those same themes. Definitely worth checking out.
Oh, maybe the Chiller channel. Okay, I don't know. I did want to make a point, though. I remember there was an anecdote about H.P. Lovecraft when he found out, I think an acquaintance of his or a friend was gay, and he was shocked by it because he thought that being gay was something that died out in ancient Greece. This is how not in the know people were back then.
Yeah,
in the 20s, they just assumed it wasn't.
These were the days before. This was the days before internet. These were the days when there were certain things you didn't talk about.
The only reason he knew about it because he read a lot, so he knew what happened in ancient Greece. You know, but it's,
right.
Yes,
exactly.
KSCM.
Keep in mind too. We're also talking about an era where any kind of pornography was illegal.
That's true. A lot was different back in the old days. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Now.
Now we're gonna get into another lawsuit.
And you're getting the same image for both. So both stories. Here we go. Hasbro's in some trouble.
Yeah. This is
It's a class action lawsuit, apparently. Well, let's get it right to it. Class action lawsuit by investors moves forward against Hasbro Incorporated. That's not good.
No, I think it's really well worth due. This is another one. Remember, I mentioned, maybe it was last year or a year before. I don't remember. It was probably in relationship to Disney, but I said, remember the phrase fiduciary responsibility. If you learn nothing else from this channel, remember the legal term fiduciary responsibility. If you are a publicly traded company, you have a fiduciary responsibility to your stockholders to make them money and not pass up opportunities to make money, to increase profit as much as you can.
And also not to lie.
And if you lie about it, and if you purposely do something to harm the bottom line of the company, you can and will be sued.
Attorney Advertising Bronson, Gurwitz & Grossman, LLC, a nationally recognized law firm, notifies investors that a class action lawsuit has been filed against Hasbro, Inc., Hasbro or the company. The lawsuit seeks to recover damages against defendants for alleged violations of the federal securities laws on behalf of all persons and entities that purchased or otherwise acquired Hasbro securities between February 7th, 2022 and October 25th, 2023, inclusive of the class period. Such investors are encouraged to join the case by visiting the firm's site. I could be wrong. I thought I heard somewhere that a firefighter's pension fund was involved in this too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. In fact, they're the central one. I forget what the names of these mutual funds are, but yeah, this comes down to how mutual funds, acquire stocks, right? If anyone who has ever had a 401k or some sort of mutual fund, IRA, you talk to your financial guy and he'll say, okay, well, based on your age, you'll probably be looking to retire around this age. Are you looking for, to be a little bit more conservative? Are you looking to be a little bit more aggressive? Do you want to be somewhere in the middle? Most people generally tend to want to be in the middle. You want growth, but you don't want to risk so much that you lose everything, right? Because let's face it, the stock market is gambling. It's basically just gambling. Right. Yep. And if you throw a bunch of money into a new startup company, that's risky. If it does well, it could pay off big, but it's more likely going to go bankrupt and you lose your money. Right. Whereas, if you play black, on roulette or whatever, you got a 50-50 chance. That's a bit better odds, and by the same token, there's something called blue chips in investing. Those are the things that you're not going to get a lot of money out of them, but it's going to make you money over time, almost certainly, just because if it doesn't, that means there's a much bigger problem with the economy overall than your own individual fund, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to buy, well, you're probably going to buy gold, you're going to buy silver, you're going to buy interests in like commodities like corn and wheat and the foods, right? Things that everyone's gonna need. People are gonna buy it, right? So those are called blue chips. And Hasbro, as a company, has been known to be a regular. I wouldn't call them a blue chip, but they're pretty safe. They're a company that's been around forever. They make toys. Even in rough times, they tend to still pull a profit. It's usually a pretty safe bet. Okay, yeah. So that's all the background. You take over from there.
So the complaint alleges that through the class period, defendants made numerous materially false and misleading statements and omissions about the quality inventory that Hasbro held and represented that its rising inventory levels reflected outstanding and anticipated demand rather than excess supply that outpaced waning demand. As a result of these misrepresentations, Hasbro common stock traded artificially inflated prices throughout the class period. In truth, defendants knew that Hasbro had overpurchased inventory to an extent that significantly outpaced customer demand. The truth began to emerge on January 26, 2023, when the company previewed its fourth quarter results for fiscal year 2022. Hasbro, having repeatedly touted the apparent strength of 2022 holiday season, now admitted that revenue would contract by 17% year over year. To combat weakening sales, Hasbro announced it would be laying off 15% of its global workforce, and at the same time disclosed the immediate departure of its chief operating officer. These disclosures caused the price of Hasbro's stock to declined by $5.17 per share, or over 8%. However, defendants continued to make false, reassuring statements to investors concerning the extent of the inventory buildup. The truth was further revealed.
I think we need more translation there.
Yes.
Okay, because
yes.
I think you're getting into a lot of technical ease, and let me explain it in a way that I think our audience would understand a little bit better.
They lied.
Yes. He's talking in general terms, right? For investors who don't know these products that this company puts out the way we do. So if you look at things like Hasbro was involved with a Dungeons and Dragons movie. Remember that last year?
Yeah, big hit.
And they put, that's the problem. And then all the toys that they were selling, in quotes, they were producing to be sold because they were expecting it to be such a big hit. Well, guess what? They didn't sell. And there's plenty of channels like World-Class BSers and other channels on YouTube that go to Ollie's and say, hey, look at what's not selling. And all the Dungeons and Dragons figures are at Ollie's collecting dust. All of these role-playing games that we've been mocking for the past couple years with their LGBTQIA
and go to prom. Go to prom.
Going to Dungeons and Dragons prom and wheelchair accessible dungeons, right? Well, guess what? The books aren't selling. People aren't buying into their online services. It's a dying brand because of these things that they're doing, and they keep building it up, saying, well, look what we're doing here and look at what we're doing there. And there's and this is where the lie comes in. All those toys, all these books they're printing, all of this kind of stuff. Yeah. Didn't Hasbro pay for that Kevin Smith Masters of the Universe jump? Yeah. That's, you know what? I had actually forgotten that. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Philip. That's another great example. And what they will do is they will turn around to the Fireman's Mutual Fund, who doesn't know anything about any of these things, and say, look at all this product that we're putting out because there's so much demand. That is what we call a lie. That's telling them that we're producing all this product with the expectation of selling it, and they go, oh, wow, okay, well, I will buy more stock in your company. And what?
Kids love the Masters of the Universe Netflix series that nobody watched anyway.
Exactly. And then all these toys end up getting sold at Ollie's. They don't pull a profit on the movie, right? Nobody's playing the new Dungeons and Dragons anymore, and that's fraud. That is literally fraud. That is claiming that you are more profitable than you are. I'm not going to go so far as to say that Disney's actually doing that, but when I listen to their earnings call, I kind of wonder. Just saying, a lot of these companies are doing stuff like this, and there are laws against that. You hear me say that they're lying to investors to get their investment dollars. And the first thing you should be thinking, because you're paying attention, hey, that doesn't seem right. It's absolutely not. That's why we have laws against it. And that's why a lawsuit like this happens.
So the truth was further revealed in October 26, 23, when Hasbro announced its financial results for its fiscal year 2023 third quarter and shocked investors by disclosing an 18% decline in consumer product revenues year over year, with a significant reduction in guidance for this. This is lower than what they had said it was going to be. So what's next? The class action lawsuit has been filed. There is no cost to you. Oh, we represent investors in class action contingency fees. So if they win, they get paid out of the winnings, not out of. Okay. I have a question. Forget about money that it's owed. I'm thinking jail time. Am I wrong here?
That is entirely possible. Yes, that the Securities and Exchange Commission actually could do that. That's right. That's a possibility. I'm not saying it will happen, but it is a distinct possibility. It'll be very interesting to see this going forward. Now, Hasbro is a big company, but not as big as, for example, Disney, right? So when it's very much harder to hide your bottom line year over year when you're a company like Hasbro. I have argued for a while that Disney is moving the cookies around on the plate to make them look like more. And they have a much bigger plate with a lot more cookies. So they can get away with it for a lot longer. Hasbro, not so much. They get to the end of the year. This is what our bottom line is. Oops, we're in trouble.
Ooh, Mattel got Jurassic Park probably for the next Jurassic World movie. Okay, interesting. They lost the Jurassic Park license.
That's very interesting. Licenses are starting to move too. That's a good point.
This is a disaster, and of course they ended up laying off a lot of their workforce who probably were just trying to do their job.
It sounds like a pivot to me.
If you want to do the pivot, okay.
Yeah.
But the point is, we're going to keep an eye on this. Do you think Hasbro deserves what's coming to them?
Absolutely. Absolutely, they do. They've been engaging in very predatory practices. Remember, this is the same company that owns Wizards of the Coast. They own Magic the Gathering, and they send the Pinkertons to a YouTuber's house to extort from him because they sent him something they shouldn't have. And we will be talking about a very similar case later on in the stream. But yeah.
Just
let's talk about those reductions in force that Hasbro is having as a result of this.
This is ridiculous. So this is, of course, I would argue this is a slice of life. I don't want to say little people because I'm not calling him a little person. You know what I mean? But
he is the kind of guy who he's not the executive at the company.
He's the guy that works. He does his job.
Yeah, he's not the one that you know we look at and we see him on the streams and he's talking about how inclusive and blah 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 and this and that. He's just the guy that does the work.
Yeah. So this Hasbro employee was just laid off after 25 years of designing toys for brands like Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Pokemon. John Warden grew up playing with Hasbro toys, dreaming of a day when he might get to design them himself. And the dream did come true. Warden spent 25 years working for the toy company on everything from the Pokemon, Power Rangers, Transformers, and G.I. Joe product lines. He even created the Star Wars Boba Fett action figure. Unfortunately, the dream abruptly came to a halt recently, he told reporters, after Hasbro laid off the design director, along with nearly 100 other employees. So who's going to make the toys?
Well, nobody's buying the toys. They don't need someone to make the toys. That's the problem.
Well, then you're done as a company then, because you're getting rid of the people that know how to do. Have them make different toys then if the toys you're making aren't selling. Have them do other things. So what happens next for Warden? Some variation of that question faces everyone in their 50s and nearing retirement who's lost their job unexpectedly. Assessing the obstacles. Those newly bereft of steady income as they pass 50 also face the double bind of paying for health insurance and re-entering an employed marketplace where age stacks the deck against them. While you can keep your employer's health insurance up to 18 months after you're let go, it comes at a steep price. KFF's 2024 Health Insurance Benefits Survey found that the annual premiums for this employer-sponsored family health coverage reached $25,572 this year. Is that per person?
I guess.
That's a jump from 7% the year before of nearly 50% from 2014. Oh, that's interesting that it went up. Now, I wonder if it coincides with anything. Now, guess who foots the total bill once you're laid off? In February, a story in The Atlantic proclaimed that GoFundMe is a health care utility now. In fact, in 2019, GoFundMe CEO told CBS about 1/3 of all funds raised on the platform go to medical campaigns. I think we've helped with some of that on our channel with people in the community, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was for Warden after he lost his job. He started a GoFundMe to address an absolutely urgent situation. My fiance, Megan Elderton, suffers from Crohn's disease, Warden wrote. She has survived a total of 20 lower abdominal surgeries in the past 15 years. Though the American Journal of Public Health has found that only 12% of U.S. medical campaigns met their goals, Warren successfully raised $21,413, just enough to finance 2 months of Megan's pain management medication. Assuming Warden or others with decades of experience need to restart the job hunt, Ageism presents a stubborn obstacle. For starters, employers can easily sweep it under the rug simply by refusing to grant you an interview. In ARP's work and job status series, nearly 1 in 6 adults age 50 plus, 14%, reported they were not hired for a job they applied for within the last 2 years because of their age. Among those with jobs, 2 in 3 of that demographics think older workers face discrimination in the workplace today. I guess it's a thing. I'm going to say this. You're getting rid of your experts who know how to do this, who could be teaching the younger generation how it's done and mentoring
This has been
of course, you probably fired the young people that work there too. It's just
this has been a problem in the workforce for a very long time. It tends to be very myopic, looking only at the bottom line. Hey, I can get rid of this guy who's been here for 25 years and hire 2 younger people that can that at half the price that can do twice as much. That's what they think. Now, what ends up happening is over time, the service starts to drop. You don't get the quality that you used to. And nobody has ever really figured out that fine line between providing a product that is sufficient quality, that's worth it to keep your customer base, and just churning out a bunch of crap, in huge quantities.
I find it weird how Young got Imagine and tried to get rid of some of the current company's IP, like G.I. Joe.
I don't find it weird at all. It's wrong-headed, but just as wrong-headed as getting rid of an experienced person to hire a bunch of snot-nosed out of school kids that are coming in talking about their gender preferences and their he-he's and their she-she's. Well,
again, I think that age shouldn't be a consideration. If you're young and can do the job, you get hired. If you're older and can do the job,
no, it's not the age. It's the time and service that means you're getting paid more. That's the bottom line that I was talking about.
Okay,
but the other problem is that
got rid of all their senior workers. Got rid of them. I remember hearing about
the same management that doesn't understand the value of the experience of their long-time employees are also the ones that don't understand the value of their IPs. They don't understand G.I. Joe, so they ignore G.I. Joe. They want to get rid of it. We don't want, and it's a lot of these dumb kids coming in too, saying, "Oh, we don't want kids don't want war soldiers with guns and blah 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 and this and that."
Okay,
they want rainbow haired and this.
G.I. Joe. What is G.I. the big thing with G.I. Joe? What is it selling? It's selling patriotism in the United States.
Oh, but that's bad. We got to hate America now. Because America is imperialist, colonialist, all these atrocities throughout history. These are these neo-Marxists that are destroying all these companies from the inside.
It's terrible. The people running Hasbro need to go.
See,
some of them need to go to jail too, but let's be honest.
I agree.
Maybe all
David Pensack makes a great point. Experience equals wisdom. The problem is inexperience equals cheap.
Yep.
And look, let's face it. We can talk a big game here and pontificate, but the reality is, who do you buy from? Do you buy from the local person handcrafting stuff, or do you buy cheap shit on Temu?
And let's be honest, when you buy when you make cheap stuff, people stop buying.
Yeah.
And because if it's not as intellectual
cheap
property.
If it's gonna be cheap, it better be cheap. If it's gonna be low quality, it needs to be low price as well. That's why I'm talking about the Temu. It's also why, we probably don't want to go down this route of economics, but when people start talking about tariffs on cheap products coming into the country, it means your Temu tchotchkes are going to be unaffordable to you. Maybe start buying American stuff. We'll start hiring more Americans, and your taxes will come down in the long run, even though in the short term, maybe your prices go up a little bit.
Yep. The last CEO was the last of the family who founded Hasbro. He died of cancer. Yeah, so there was probably still at that point, maybe that's a family legacy thing. We don't want to, and of course now people running it just don't.
I like Philip Demick makes a great point. It's funny. Soldiers should only come with flowers and cookies, no knives and guns. Yeah, exactly.
remember that scene in RoboCop 2 when they were saying, how do you want RoboCop to change? He says, well, you know, I know there are a lot of parents groups here. I'm a parent myself. You know, why does he always have to bring out that big gun of his when he's trying to solve a conflict? Remember they were putting all that crap in his programming?
Yeah. And then he couldn't function because
I know.
he was becoming bogged down by it. Yeah.
That was almost like a literal, like when people start picking apart the intellectual property you want, but it's happening in universe. And then
What's, you look at movies that were meant to be tongue-in-cheek parodies like RoboCop, Idiocracy, Demolition Man, and then you see this stuff actually happening in the real world. Can you imagine a cybernetic, robotic-minded cop having to deal with preferred pronouns and all that kind of crap? He'd short circuit too.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Morgan Lofting. Original
Baroness voice. Wow.
I'm telling you, they don't understand. G.I. Joe could be a gold mine. The kids, boys could get into it. You could have a cartoon series, movie series. You could do
the girls would get into it so much too. Those female characters were well.
Baroness is still a popular dress up.
You go to Comic-Con, you see the girls dressed up like Scarlet and Baroness and Lady J, and it's like, yeah, don't tell me the girls aren't into this stuff too.
But of course, they don't want to make money. They own Wizards of the Coast. They've run that into the ground. Remember, people were complaining about the quality of paper, and they would get shut down for complaining about the quality of paper on the cards because you're using worse paper on these cards that are supposed to be a premium product. You don't. It's. But I don't know. We will definitely be focusing on. I'll be interested to see what happens when this trial happens because I think it's time these executives were taken down a peg, but. It's sad for the people that lost their jobs, and I feel bad. I hope he gets through it all right. But it's hard out there.
This one is another one that I didn't shorten the URL because I wanted to make sure everyone sees. This one comes from that Park Place.
I think I sent this one to you. Avowed, this is. All I know is all week people have been talking about Avowed and some Avowed creator that's been ruffling feathers and in the wrong way. And I figure I have to do an article on it. An art director for Obsidian working on the first-person fantasy game Avowed was exposed on X by Elon Musk for alleged illegal racist hiring practices at the Microsoft studio. Musk then personally brought this discovery to the attention of Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. It seems as though Avowed director Matt Hansen's attempt at provoking ex-owner Elon Musk may have snowballed into a series of events that could expose developer Obsidian to legal ramifications. The controversy started when Musk reposted former World of Warcraft team leader Mark Kern, aka Grums' comment on Avowed's pronoun selection feature. I'm drawing a line, Kern said. I'm rejecting any game that has pronouns in it, and you grammar somethings know what I mean. Stop being stupid. I don't care if the game is good. A message must be sent. Pronouns promote the woke mind virus, and gamers must send a clear message. Musk reposted this, adding, having pronouns in a fantasy video game is utterly unacceptable. Hansen pounced on this, attacking Musk and trying to make it seem as though the whole thing had been a trap for the Tesla boss all along. The art director of Avowed game, let me see. Hold on. I wanted so badly to make him mad with my game. This is what he says. And I can't believe it actually worked, Hansen said on his Blue Sky, of course, account, which you can only see if you're logged into the service. Oh, that's where, just wait until you see the default, you sad, sick little something. He then went on to antagonize Musk further. It's honestly deeply surreal to have the world's richest something boy whine about something I am making, he said, basking in his moment. I am quite frankly giddy. I cannot think of a single person in the world I would rather irritate. It didn't take long for the internet to start digging into the art director's past statements, and soon YouTuber Has-Been Gold found something incriminating. This is what he had said, and this was Elon posted X about Obsidian's art director's potentially legal hiring practices. This was tagged. This is an old post of his. Reminder to Black artists out there looking for portfolio reviews or job advice. My DMs are open. You will always have my priority, the Uncovered Hansen quote said. We got too many crusty white dudes in this field. Please let me help you replace me one day. I want to go back to living in the woods.
And how many lawsuits have we been seeing with companies that have been posting stuff like this online, where these social media posts are absolutely permissible in court as evidence. These companies are just getting eaten up by these lawsuits.
Yep. Ian Michaels Chong and other View podcast pointed this as proof of racist hiring practices by the Microsoft studio. Microsoft Gaming Division is excluding whites from being hired to work on their video games. He said on X, all the new hires are unqualified. I guess the word is queer and black people because the company executives have an explicit mandate against crusty old white dudes. Mustin seized on this, reposting it on X, tagging the CEO of Microsoft, which owns Obsidian. Former Obsidian developer and lead and design lead on Star Wars: Knights of the Republic 2, Chris Avalon, sounded off as well. Based on recent views, if you're rejected from an art position at Obsidian in the past few years, call a lawyer. Discrimination in hiring, especially for Micro Studio, can ensure you don't need to apply for a job ever again. Based on recent news, if you were rejected from an art position, Must then sounded off on the on the controversy surrounding racially motivated hiring practice back in March when it said it should not be acceptable for any company in the gaming industry to be racist and sexist against quote-unquote white dudes.
And legally it's not. We do have an equal employment opportunity law ever since the 70s. This is what companies are getting sued on. And this is why DEI was doomed from the start.
Elon picks up another of Matt Hansen's posts, tagging Microsoft CEO in a prior tweet about Obsidian's potentially legal hiring. Hansen responded back then to Musk's statement, promising to double down on that very behavior. Oh, Elon, you sweet summer child, he wrote back in March. This will only embolden me, you sack of... Okay. Musk commented...
Yeah, and I laugh at that because that's literally ignoring reality. You're poking at a dragon here. You know? I mean... For crying out loud, I mean, Hi, Bob. Hi, Bob. Anyone remember that?
He has a position of power in the next presidential administration. At the spare. He is confessing to illegal behavior. Won't end well for him. That's what Elon Musk just said. He has the ear of people in power. We're going to be in power, you moron. This is not. This is the time to shut your mouth. And to be fair, you have seen certain celebrities that were shouting their mouth weeks ago that have gone very quiet. But the dumb ones keep running their mouth right now, and this is not smart.
This is. And do you think that just because you've gone deeper into your echo chamber, your blue butterfly, that people are not seeing this? You are still publishing your comments to the world. That's what social media is, you dumbass.
Let me see. We have a shared humanity. Stop the balkanization.
Exactly. But see, again, that's what this neo-Marxism is all about. It's I'm incompetent, I'm worthless, but if I make everybody equally worthless, then somehow, we're all, more equal that way.
And you said not an article for this week, but a reminder of last week's for continuity. Elon Musk tells Wizards of the Coast to burn in hell for erasing Gary Guy.
I just wanted to remind everybody about this little article. In fact, I'll drop it because we did it last week. This was something that we talked about last week that I do feel is a pivot point that brings us directly into our next article. Or at least I think it has bearing. Let me drop that one.
Oh, wow. Not gaming news related, but did you see what someone in the chat mentioned just recently? A certain presidential card went out.
Oh yeah, I heard about that before we went live.
Topic for another time.
I knew that was going to happen. Anyone who didn't know that was going to happen, where have you been?
Trump needs to issue out a pardon for that poor man in New York City that was trying to defend those women and then gets arrested. That was ridiculous.
Oh, he's going to be dropping a ton of them day one. You watch.
Elon Musk announced his plan to create an AI game studio to make gaming great again. What is this?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look. The world's richest man.
This is also from that Park Place.
World's richest man has apparently had enough. Elon Musk today announced plans to create an AI game studio to make gaming great again. Musk, a longtime gamer who was at one time the world's top-ranked Diablo 4 player, has been vocal in the past with his opinions on the gaming industry and its shift toward identity politics and virtue signaling. Musk has weighed in repeatedly on topics like pronoun selection appearing in AAA video games and other.
Hold on just a second there, Boomer.
Yeah.
Matanui, you might want to actually pay attention to reality. Look at what he's done. Do you know anyone who has done the things he has done as successfully as he has done them? I don't know where you're getting your information from, Matanui, but he's doing very well for himself. And he's doing very well for the people that patronize his companies. So I don't know why you believe that, but pay attention to what we're talking about here.
Anyway, says Musk has weighed in repeatedly on topics like pronoun selection appearing in AAA video games and other agenda-driven content making its way into consoles. This ideological approach to storytelling has become the rule in modern gaming rather than the exception, and gamers have started to push back after the disastrous rollout of games like Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, Dragon Age, The Veilguard, Concord, Dustborn, and Star Wars Outlaws. Gamers are doing whatever they can to make their voices and opinions heard. Elon posted a post on X from Dogecoin creator Billy Marcus. We talked about Doge a little while back when she died, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't understand how game developers and game journalists got so ideologically captured, Marcus said. Gamers have always been trolls, anti-greedy corporations, anti-BS. Gamers have always rejected dumb, manipulative BS and can tell when someone is an outsider poser. Musk responded in his own saying, too many game studios are owned by massive corporations. AI is going to start an AI game studio to make games great again. A gaming studio backed by Musk could have the ability to change the course of the gaming world, much like Tesla and SpaceX head honcho changed social media when he purchased Twitter and turned it into X. An AI studio would be able to, in theory, turn out games faster than bloated AAA studios that sometimes take anywhere from 5 to 10 years to put out a new title. This would be a substantial leap forward in AI adoption and might well spark an industry-wide shift. Musk's announcement received high praise from the World of Warcraft team leader Mark Kern, aka Grums. It's time, Grums said on the X response to Elon's announcement. AA games are outperforming AAA bloat this year by an order of magnitude. AAA budgets of these massive corporate games are unsustainable. 8 to 12 studios spread out over the world to make one game is hugely inefficient. Mythical Man Month on steroids, $300 million to $1 billion budgeting, competing for 5 to 10 slots a year between success and failure. High risk means no new ideas and the same recycled slop. They are already collapsing. Meanwhile, AA studios at 40 to 7 million budgets are delivering 5 to 10 times returns and taking all the top slots this year. Musk.
So just like I was saying before about, you know, Hasbro and these executives who don't even understand, you know, the products, the IPs, right? You know, I was referencing somebody who was like, you know, why do they let G.I. Joe go? Well, because they don't like G.I. Joe. So they don't care about G.I. Joe and they let it go and they don't understand it. Why do all of our movies suck? Why does Star Wars suck? Why does Marvel suck? Because the people making them don't understand them and don't care about them. This is actually the exact opposite. This is somebody who plays games. This guy actually is a gamer. You know, in that regard, he's in quotes, one of us. So he comes in and he sees, and we do article after article, like last week, which is why I had you bring that up. And he tells them, go to hell for, you know, dumping on Gary Gygax and whatnot. And this is where the rumor that's been going around this past week, simply because of a joke he made online, someone said, you know, someone should buy Hasbro, you know, and fix these games. And Elon said, how much is it worth? Which of course had everyone assuming, because he said the same thing about X. Well, back then it was Twitter. And then he turned around and bought them, you know, that he was going to buy Hasbro. I think this article says, no, he's not. What he's going to do is he's going to start his own company and, you know, by default, end up in quotes, owning Hasbro as they're dying, and possibly his company is far more successful.
And if he wanted to, he could always buy the license again on the cheap after he makes profit from the new company, right?
Or, yeah, well, and the value of Hasbro is just going to go down and down. So, yeah, that could end up being a possibility. But Jesse Guajardo says, AI games, I don't trust it. keep in mind what you think of when they say AI and what they actually mean are two very different things. I suspect what he probably means is something a little kitschy, something that we've had before, actually. The idea of a computerized dungeon master, okay? Where your gaming group, using large language models, feeds in all of your information into the module that, exists in the computer rather than in a book, okay? And you don't need to have your own person, because the way Dungeons and Dragons goes right now, one person has to run the game and everyone else plays, and that dungeon master gets burned out. They don't get to play. See, that's the problem. They're the host. They don't get to play. Whereas this would be something where everyone gets to play. And
I think it's worth testing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've already seen, minor versions of this. Some are better than others. Look, if anyone could pull it off, I really think he could. Now, Phillips says the AI won't be able to tell the difference between simulation and actual war, birth of Skynet. You're right. So maybe don't give them access to the nukes. Simple solution.
We'll see.
Just saying,
But yeah, so I don't know. We'll see.
And again, pay attention to what I'm saying, Matanui. I just covered this. What you think they're talking about with AI and what they're actually talking about are two different things.
Yeah, I don't think he's talking about having AI make the games. I don't think that's what he's referring to. Or is he?
No, again, he's a gamer. He knows what he enjoys, which is going to coincide with the things that we enjoy. He's going to make better games. If he does this.
I think he does.
A plan. This is a plan. It's not a done deal. But let's face it.
If he can
most of the plans that he says, he ends up doing. So look, for all the castigating that we do of these companies, and we complain and complain and complain, we should be equally fired up that someone is doing what we keep saying. Stop with the remakes, stop with the DEI bullshit, stop with all of that, and just make good games. Bottom line, that's what this article is. Yes, he's going to introduce some technological advancements and improvements, but by and large, the bottom line, he's going to make games great again.
What were two of the big hits this year? It was Black Myth Wukong and Stellar Blade. These weren't based on existing properties. These were all the original things.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. He deserves a shot at doing this. He does play games. So, if he could just make a Diablo killer, that'd be great. I'd love that.
There you go. Well, maybe you could actually call it Diablo Killer. That would be neat.
I don't care. Just, just make a game like Diablo without all the BS that they put in the recent ones. All right. That'd be great.
Well, true.
Maybe sign into a Blizzard account to play a game I already paid for.
Should we talk about the wonderful movies that are coming out now?
It's doing well, though. I mean, I heard even Gladiator II had an uptick, which surprised me. We'll look into the box office for next week.
Well, I think the bottom line is what's it up against? Where are people going to go spend their
people went to see Moana 2. Moana 2 goes in another direction, giving emotional investment, character development, catchy songs, a miss in favor of stuff. This is from a review on the Wrap. The characters have nowhere left to go, so they just do stuff. Moana's people are super happy. She's searching the seas for different civilization, and she's pretty happy. Maui spends the first chunk of the film kidnapped and getting puked on, so he's not happy, but it's not because he has to mature as an individual. It's because he's kidnapped and getting puked on. When Moana receives a vision telling her to follow a shooting star to a long-lost island which used to connect to the many peoples and cultures of Polynesia, she does that thing. She's good at the whole time. Maui comes along and he also helps. Eventually, the plot is resolved and everyone's happy about it. Apparently, what I had heard, I don't know if it was from Film Threat, they were saying that this was I think it was Jester Bell. She was talking about this, and she was saying that this was apparently a Disney Plus series that they decided to then reconvert into a movie.
That actually makes a lot of sense based on what I've been hearing about this movie now. Yes. Now, if that is true, I'm going to say then kudos to Disney on this decision, because as we've been talking about, the money is in the cinema. It's not in streaming. So at least in that regard, give them props.
And I'll say this, I don't think there's any kind of weird messaging in it, but it just strikes me as, I don't know, like it just strikes me that they cheaped out, and they're going to make a quick buck off of this. And who knows, maybe that'll be, if there's a post woke Disney, it'll just be them making cheap stuff that I guess the kids will like. I don't know, but I don't know. I mean, is this a good thing or a bad thing, you think? I don't think it's a good thing, but it's not bad in the things we usually complain about. But
from what I've been hearing, and this is again, this is one of those movies. It's not made for me. I am not
made for kids.
True.
But the whole idea between Disney movies is the adults could go with the kids and still have a good time, right? I mean,
and that's actually an excellent point. Yeah. Historically, the Disney films were loved by all ages.
Yes.
Especially the earlier ones. The original Snow White. The adults loved it. The children loved it. The entire family loved it. That's what made it a classic. Moana, from what I remember of the original movie, everybody who saw it loved it. But what I'm also hearing about this sequel is it is a Disney sequel. And those of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s remember the direct-to-video sequels. They were meh at best. Sounds like that's exactly what this is. The difference is you're paying to see it in the cinema.
Yeah.
And I think it's still not doing as well as it could be because people are hearing that through the word of mouth and going, well, do we really want to go and spend the cinema price to go see this when it's going to be out next year on Disney Plus anyway?
I guess. But I don't know. People did go see Inside Out too. That was a hit. But I guess with this, I don't know.
From what I'm hearing, though, Inside Out 2 is a much better film than this one.
Yeah, well, because it was an actual sequel, whereas this is 4 episodes of a TV show they cobbled together into a movie. But what do I know? What do I know? I still haven't seen Moana 1. Have you?
It's actually pretty good, yeah.
I heard it was good. I mean, I bought it for my sister for Christmas one year. I should watch it, but
I would encourage you also to check out the John Solo video talking about the mythology behind Moana. Because there's a lot of really good Maori mythology covered in especially the first movie. Now, this second movie, from what I understand, and I don't know this to be true, but I'm going to assume this is probably a spoiler for this movie. But nobody should be too shocked by it, especially if you know Maori mythology. But it turns out that in the course of this movie, Moana becomes a demigod herself, equal standing with what's his name? Maui.
Okay.
Now, before anyone starts it's woke and they're pushing out the male character and blah, blah, blah. Remember, the movie is called Moana. She is the star, so she is the hero. And actually, she's now being elevated to the level she should have started out with if they were 100% accurate with the mythology.
Well, this was the original movie, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and apparently this one. But like I said,
this was before Disney went nuts, I felt, when Moana came out. This was like right before they went nuts. They were still putting out movies. I don't know.
And, Jesse, actually, and again, every time you guys make these marketing points, I can't speak to it. You're absolutely right. I'm surprised Disney isn't re-releasing the old Disney classic animated film back in the big screen. Yeah, that would have made sense. In fact, what they should have done was they should have released it, say, in October, November, and then this month release the sequel because you'd have the jazz going, right? And that is That is intelligent marketing. That's marketing that doesn't cost you anything.
Okay.
It's marketing that actually makes you money.
Disney re-released those 3 Pixar movies. They didn't give theatrical runs during the pandemic that they put on Disney Plus, and now then when they put them back on the screen, nobody went to see them. So I think they're scared about that.
But how backwards is that, right? It's like, well, of course they didn't go see them in the theater. They already saw them on stream.
The problem
it's literally the opposite of this situation.
I think in some ways, in order for you to have a re-release that does well on the big screen, maybe it had to have actually been on the big screen to begin with, and people to have that nostalgia about wanting to go see it like people had seen it on the big screen. But in the case with those Pixar movies, they didn't give them big screen releases. I don't know. I could be wrong there.
Yeah, no. You're right about that. But then that brings us back to what Jesse's saying here. If you re-release that first movie, you remind people of the nostalgia, and then you end it. You end it with a tag. Moana will return next month in Moana 2, or in 2 months in Moana 2. That's good marketing. So my point is, though, even though I give them points for releasing this in theater before it goes to cinema or before it goes to stream, at the same time they're still not making all the marketing sense that they should. And their execs are getting paid way too much when we're actually giving. If they were watching our stream right now, we're giving them free advice.
Gotcha. Let me know, Matanui, if my mic is out of order.
It has.
Is it a roboting thing?
At one point, it was bad, but it was just one sentence that you were saying, and it corrected itself, so I didn't bring it up.
I have another headset that I bought. I think I'm going to replace this one I'm using. This is my newer one I've been using, which I think is kind of wonky. I mean, I had the thing where I had the mute the other week. Remember when you were running where is Boomer?
Yes. That did happen.
All right.
I didn't realize it was related.
Well, I don't know. I just tapped the button on the thing, but maybe I'm going to try for a different headset.
Telling you guys, this is a professional operation here. This is.
If you say so. I'll say this: my original headset lasted a while and did pretty good. But I should have bought a replacement of that actual brand. But oh well.
Well, so to wrap up here, are you gonna be going to see Moana 2 anytime real soon while it's in the theaters?
Well, maybe I should watch Moana 1 first, and maybe I'll just enjoy that.
Be careful.
I have a digital copy of it.
Moana 1 was actually good. You might then want to see Moana 2, and maybe it's not worth it.
Well, then I can wait for the DVD to come to a public library. Oh, look, Gladiator II.
Ridley Scott. That's all I need to know.
Is that like that picture, huh? Are you impressed?
That's pretty much who he is, right? Yeah.
Gladiator 2 cinematographer Ridley Scott has changed and is now lazy and rushes to get things done. Wow.
That I can believe. There's no way we could know that as an audience, even though the quality of his films has really dropped. But then when you hear this, you go, okay, yeah, I can see it. I can definitely see it.
All right. You really can't make this up. In a recent podcast interview with Doc Fix, Gladiator 2 cinematographer John Matheson has seemingly thrown Ridley Scott under the bus. Matheson has worked on Scott's director of photography on 6 films, including Gladiator, Matchstick Men, and Kingdom of Heaven. There's a good chance they won't ever collaborate again after these comments. In the podcast interview, Matheson claims that Scott has become lazy and rushes to get things done. He further adds that Scott's current approach has negatively impacted the quality of his recent films, including their look and feel. He went on to claim that the director has quote-unquote changed and was now quite impatient on set, which he felt had a detrimental effect on the finished production. Matheson told the podcast that Scott now shoots scenes with multiple cameras rather than just one, resulting in less attention to detail. It's really lazy, Matheson continued. It's the CG computer graphic elements now of tidying up, leaving things in shot, cameras in shot, microphones in shot, bits of set hanging down, shadows from booms, and they said on Gladiator II, well, clean it up. That I've heard it also, the expression was fix it in post, right?
Yep.
No, you fix it on the set, because there are going to be other things to fix in post that you're not seeing.
Because again, but at the same time though, as I was saying I don't know if I said it on this stream, but I think I dropped it as a comment in Unscripted on Deleted's channel. We are partly responsible for this, right? Because we allow, the entertainment industry to get away with mediocrity, when what we really should be doing is voting with our eyes, our feet, and our dollars. By the same token, these production companies allow this by saying, well, this is Ridley Scott, whatever he says goes. No, you tell him what the budget is and you say, this is what it is. And if you go over that, you better justify it.
Yeah.
And that's how you end up with these kinds of situations, these lazy wastes of money. Remember, it's not just about how much your movie makes, it's how much it costs, because it's the difference between those two that tells you how successful a film is. And if you save $1 million, $2 million on the front end, that's $1 million, $2 million you make on the back end.
Yeah, that's true.
And all the time you spend taking, things out, the crew and the grip and the dangling mic, taking them out in post, can run into millions of dollars that could have been spent on making a better product or coming out farther under budget.
There's a funny scene in the movie Black Dynamite where they're doing the scene and you see a mic dangling down and Michael Jai White's looking up at it while trying to deliver the dramatic scene, and you see his eyes keep darting up at the dangling, because it's meant to look like a low budget black exploitation picture, but that was part of the joke. Whereas in this, they just brushed them out. He said, but it's not very good for cinematography. Explain, it means it can only light from one angle. So this is a professional cinematographer. Look at his older films, and getting depth into other things is very much part of lighting. You can't do that with a lot of cameras, but he just wants to get it all done. Having lots of cameras, I don't think made the films any better. It's a bit rush. That's changing him, but that's the way he wants to do it, and I don't like it, and I don't think many people do, but people love his films, and he's Ridley Scott and can do what he wants. He's not going to be, no. The reason he gave this interview is because he doesn't want to work with Ridley Scott anymore.
No. And it sounds like there's a certain amount of freedom that comes with that. When you decide you're not going to work with him anymore, it does liberate you to be honest, And what he's saying is true from behind the camera kind of point of view. Yeah. There used to be a time where you would use multiple cameras, but you're right. You had the one camera that was lit, right? And the others that were not lit for two reasons. One, because you might get some footage that you could use in a behind the scenes reel. Yeah. That's where you get a lot of that footage that you see in the, SPFX, the making of Star Wars and stuff like that. Those were alternate takes. Those were shots from other angles. Believe it or not, just like today where you got people with phones taking, stuff, people had their own personal cameras for their own, home video use. And some of that footage was used in behind the scenes and stuff like that. But the other reason is, especially if you're doing some sort of an action shot or something like that, you get a different angle because maybe that actually turns out to be, by chance, a good take. Like, it didn't really look good from the main camera. Let's look at the secondary footage. Hey, that actually looks really good. Let's go with that. So there is a purpose to using multiple angles, but you are lighting for a specific take in a specific camera. And the cinematographer, their job is to take every, they look at, just like an actor looks at his script and goes, I need to know where I'm standing, where I'm facing, and what my lines are. The cinematographer has to understand all of that for every actor from the point of view of the camera. He has to get the mise en scene, right? He needs to get what it looks like in camera, and it needs to be perfect. And we've talked about this as we've done some of our watch throughs. Like when I for Halloween. We did, Halloween. And I said that the cameraman and the cinematographer were very specific in these shots because just off camera, there was a hole in the wall or there was a hole in the ceiling because this was a non-lived-in house, and they only got things looking good that were going to be in camera, right? This was not something they could fix in post back then, and it was done very cheaply. And let's face it, that's what made it such a huge success. This man should know better.
He should.
The only reason
he's made some great movies. I'm not going to deny that.
Yes,
not lately,
but he now does not care. He's effectively phoning it in, and we need to tell him. And I think audiences are. Ridley Scott, the name doesn't mean what it used to. Screw your movies. We're not going to waste our money on them.
He's known as an industry as a workhorse, has released 4 films in the last 3 years. The Last Duel, which I heard was terrible and it did badly. House of Gucci, which I saw and was terrible. Oh man, you have no idea. I don't know how that's not like a notoriously so like bad film at this point. I don't know why people don't talk about it more. Napoleon, which I think was a disaster. At least I didn't see it last year, and Gladiator II, which I haven't seen, but I know. Yeah. But anyway, he has a whopping 8 projects currently in development, including his next film, The Dog Stars.
Look, and that tells me, he's putting out volume. He's not putting out quality.
Look at this.
You should just be aware of that. This guy is just looking to retire. He's trying to make as much money as he can and retire.
Okay.
So don't look at him to make any of his great films of the past.
These are the other 7 films in the works. Bomb, which is
going to do. That's a descriptive name.
Bee Gees biopic. Maybe that's the Bee Gees biopic. Okay. The Battle of Britain. Gladiator 3.
Oh, God. This guy should just stay away from historical pieces. He really should.
He's going to say, were you there? And they're going to get some old guy out and says, I was there and you're full green. Okay. Gladiator 3. They're doing a Gladiator 3.
Why?
Big Dogs and Queen and Country.
Look, after Napoleon, he should just quit on the historic epics.
He loves doing the history.
Well, he's gonna love making movies that bomb. Because Napoleon didn't do that well.
But it's an Apple TV Plus extended edition exclusive. You have to watch the extended version to get the true vision.
Oh, yeah. Twice the
Is it like 5 hours long? No, not Battle of Britain. Yeah, you're upset about this, aren't you? You were hoping it was going to be... You'd like to see a movie about the Battle of Britain, but not Ridley Scott.
Not Ridley Scott. And this is why we need independent filmmakers. I would, at this point, I'd be happy to see Christopher Nolan do Battle of Britain. Even if he doesn't, use enough extras or whatever. Actually, that's a great point. Ridley Scott and Christopher Nolan are the opposite ends of movie making, right? Because you got Ridley Scott going, fix it in post, fix it in post, fix it in post. And then you got Christopher Nolan, who doesn't want to use CG for anything. Even when, maybe you should. If you can't get enough extras, maybe throw in some CG background extras to make it look as big as, and maybe you take out that antenna on top of the building that doesn't belong there because we're supposed to be in World War II, not 2024.
Gladiator 2 left it open for a sequel.
I don't care because Gladiator 1 did not. So this one should not exist.
I remember on The Sopranos, Ralphie kept talking about Gladiator. And then someone brought up Spartacus. Spartacus, they didn't have flat tops in ancient Rome.
Oh, God.
Ralphie was an obnoxious character.
How do you know? You weren't there.
Oh man, I was just thinking Nolan should do Battle of Britain, or at least he'll try. Well, he's gonna have to wait like 20 years until after. Maybe if Ridley Scott drops the project, he could swoop in.
Actually, I don't see. You know what? There's nothing wrong with him doing his own and releasing it the same year.
That's happened.
There have been plenty of movies that have done that.
Wyatt Earp and Tombstone the same year. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think this, I don't know, Ridley Scott's the gift that keeps on giving. You don't know the horror until you've seen House of Gucci. Jared Leto in like a bald cap and talking like Super Mario. Just will Gladiator 2 be about a guy's pulling dice with the chariots?
Lamborghini.
That'd be funny. We're gonna rob the Emperor. It'd be like Ocean's 11, but in ancient Rome, right? What do you think? Huh?
Oh God! No, Scott, just retire. Damn it, you're done.
Okay, so
your films suck. Just stop.
Last we have a public service announcement. Right.
Yeah, this was a very difficult one to cover because I don't see the big media covering this.
If there's more
the
like
only
an actual
ones
story.
that are covering this are independents, YouTube channels.
Was talking about.
Pardon me?
Retroblasting.
Yeah, Retroblasting did a live stream on it. 3POA did a huge bit. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to the 3PO. This is a long deep dive, but if you want the details, 3POA's got it. He also is co-hosted by Bobby Valla of Valaverse, who he's the competition for NECA. He knows what he's talking about here. This is some of the most ridiculous crap I have ever seen coming out of a toy company. And this video here is by somebody I don't know, but it's short and succinct and pretty much covers things from the point of view of somebody actually involved in that he was a customer that was directly affected by this. Did you want to go into
statement?
Yeah.
Let me read the statement.
So this is
here. Yeah.
I guess I should give the background since we don't have an article that directly covers it. So NECA is one of these figure toy companies that deals mostly in the 6-inch range. They do some 9-inch, and I have exactly two of their action figures. I have their Michael Myers figure, and I have their one of their Jason Voorhees figures, because it fills out my otherwise Almigo line. But the problem with their figures for the longest time has been high price, low quality. Okay. Whereas, I'll buy my Mego figures, right? The exact same, and they probably have a lower range of motion in their joints and so forth, and not as much articulation. But they're solid figures. They are good quality. They're cheap in that they are inexpensive. They are half the price of a NECA figure. You buy a NECA figure, it comes in the mail or you get it from the store, and it's already broken in the package.
Yeah, that's not cool.
And there is no way to get recompense from NECA. They will not refund your money. This has been a problem going back for a long time. NECA hates their customers. They just don't care. In fact, I should have, and Tim Hayes, if you're still here, if you want to grab this and drop it in the chat, Michael from Retroblasting has a long video from, I think it was a year or 2 years ago, where he really blasts NECA for some of their practices, and it's a scorcher. Now, things have changed since then, but not much of it is for the better. So among the licenses that NECA has, they have the rights to do the 6-inch, highly articulated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures. Okay?
Yeah.
And I guess that people that are into, would you be willing to look up Retro Blasting's?
Yeah, I'll look for it.
No, well, I was talking to Tim because he said he was still here. If you can find it quickly and drop, and you could just go to Retro Blasting, do a search for NECA. I think he might actually have 2 videos if you want to drop those for the audience. I will, when I clip this, I will make sure that I have it in the description for the video. But NECA it has an incredible following by their fans. These people are like junkies. They're tapping their veins going, you got any more of those Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures? And so they had and I may misspeak on this. I want to say crowdfund, but I don't think it was a crowdfund. I think it was a pre-order. They had a pre-order for a play set. It was Donatello's Subterranean Lab, right? It's a play set for your action figures. And they were only making so many of these based on how many pre-orders they got. Pre-order is only slightly better than crowdfund, in my opinion, but I understand why they do that. If they're only going to do a limited run, they want to know how many they need to do. The orders were placed, people paid for them, they start sending them out. And some people didn't get theirs, some people got theirs, and some people got 2. One that they did not order. And again, because of the limited run, that meant that the ones that got 2 got the ones that were supposed to go to the ones that didn't get any. This is a mistake on NECA's shipping side, right? Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Tim Hayes. I super appreciate you doing that for me. And look, I am not a lawyer. I don't take anything that I say as legal advice, but from the best that I can understand, my understanding of the laws regarding interstate commerce and shipping by mail, if you receive a product you did not order, you do not have to send it back. The company can ask you to send it back. They can send you a mailing label and ask you, pretty please send it back. But they cannot demand that you do so.
Yeah.
Legally speaking. Now, I know that some people on Reddit have said, well, yes, but technically you did order it. They just sent you 2. You ordered 1. You did not order 2. They sent you the one you ordered and something you did not order, which is a second, iteration of the product. I'm sorry, you don't owe that back to them. You can be nice if you choose to, but yeah, this is the letter or the note or the email or whatever.
Can I read it? I'm going to read it.
Please.
Okay. Thank you for being a loyal NECA customer. We're writing to inform you that due to an unexpected error, our shipping system you received, from our shipping system, you received an extra Donatello Sewers Lab diorama by mistake. We sincerely apologize for the mix-up and confusion. To help us resolve this situation and ensure there are enough dioramas for the customers who bought them, we kindly request that you return the extra product to us. We will provide you with a prepaid return shipping label to make it as easy as possible. Okay. Instructions for returning the product. Please pack the item securely in its original packaging if possible. Use the prepaid return label, which we've attached to this email, to send the product back to us. Drop the package off at your nearest shipping drop-off location. We profusely apologize for the inconvenience. Upon receiving the diorama, we will provide you with a $100 NECA store credit to use on your next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle purchase as a token of our appreciation. I want to stop here.
That sounds nice. Yeah, you stop right there.
Up until here, I think this is reasonable. Granted, it's you're going out of your way to have to drop it off, but they'll give you $100 store credit. And if they're employing on the better nature of these customers, realizing, yes, we know you're a Turtles fan, but there are other Turtles fans out there that missed their thing due to a screw up on our part. If you could just help us resolve this, we'd appreciate it. They left it there. I don't really have a problem with any of this. But then this is where the bomb comes.
Yeah.
Failure to return the diorama may result in limited opportunities to buy future products from the NECA store. Wow. That's a threat.
Yes,
you
it is.
Threaten your customer for a mistake that you made. The customer is under no obligation to send this back. Now, if you want to appeal to their better natures, you'll probably they might have just been willing to send them back, but this does nothing. This is now a threat. This is actually opposite tone of what you've just been doing.
Exactly. Yeah. And that put a bad taste in people's mouths right then and there. And that caused a lot of people that were going, yeah, okay, I'll send this back. Oh, $100? Sure. That sounds like... Now, wait a minute. Excuse me? Now, what I don't have a screenshot of is that just days after sending this out, they sent a follow-up with an even further threat saying, and if you don't return it, you will be charged for it. That's something they can't do. So it gets even worse, and it's ridiculous. Now, remember, somebody in Michael's stream made a great comment. Well, if it was Hasbro, they just send the Pinkertons after them. It's like, well, yeah, this is pretty close to that, really. And again, thank you so much, Tim Hayes, for doing that for me. That was
I'm imagining some kid away at college, and 2 packages came, so his parents didn't open them up. And day before he comes home, the Pinkertons show up and start beating people up.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too. Like, you're assuming that I wasn't away on vacation, that I wasn't doing something else. I got a package, put it aside, haven't looked at it yet. I just dropped. This is the second time I did this.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this bloke, I'm sorry, I don't know his name, but go check out his channel.
How's the toy look?
You know what? I haven't actually even watched any of the videos of someone who's done an opening of it.
I'm curious now.
But he did this video. I dropped because he actually was one of the people that received 2 and had decided to send it back. Now, as you pointed out, Boomer, I don't know if you saw this video or not. But he actually, you pointed out, yeah, you've got to go through some extra work to take it back because you got to drop it off at the location. Well, guess what? The first place that he drove to, they couldn't accept it for whatever reason. They didn't take packages over a certain size or value or I don't know, something. So he had to go to another location. So he's running around town to fix NECA's mistake as they are threatening him. Effectively. And there was a little bit of chat. I even got involved in the chat on the video. I like doing that, even if I have very little to say, just because I know it helps out the YouTuber and the algorithms and whatnot. But I said, you're a better person than I probably wouldn't have bothered. That $100 from NECA, I probably wouldn't use it at this point. But then again, I haven't bought from NECA in a long time. Their value sucks. Maybe fix all the figures that people have bought, that you sent them broken, and then maybe we'll talk about sending you back your screw up. This is just absolutely blatantly ridiculous. No company should ever operate this way, ever.
I've been noticing there's just been a trend with customer service lately where there's like now an attack on the customer. And I want to say it's when they started calling customers consumers. I think that's when it changed. The customer is king. Now, are there bad customers out there? Are there customers that do abuse certain things? And
sure.
Of course there are. And I'm not defending them. But the idea behind is the customer is always right is you don't want to make your customer angry because then your customer won't. I mean, I'd almost be tempted these people, you know what? I'm going to send this back to you and keep your $100 credit. I'm never buying from you again. That would be a good message because you know what I'm saying? I almost feel like doing that. I don't know. I think this was terrible. This is absolutely terrible attitude. If they had just left it alone there and then see what happens when the things come back to them. You're gonna have to give us some time because people, they have jobs, they have other obligations. They can't, put everything on the side to send this back. It may take them a week or two to get it back to you.
This last link that Tim Hayes just dropped is the most recent live. I think this was I want to say yesterday. It was either yesterday or the day before, where Michael was talking about this great conversation. Especially with the chat comments and whatnot. It was, it was. That's how Michael is. He calls it like it is. He doesn't pull any punches.
So they screw up, but they're not learning from their mistake. They're doubling down, basically.
Do you tell them what Michael said about the board meeting or whatever it was, where a pin dropped?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There was a comment that came up in this live stream where referring back to the previous NECA video that Tim Hayes dropped, where he just goes off on their customer service and rips into them. Apparently, somebody that was in the stream, a good friend of his, works at NECA. And he couldn't go into details, obviously enough, but he was able to say that this friend of his told him that the executives at NECA were very aware of Retro Blasting's video about them, and that video was actually played during a department meeting. And while that video was playing, you could hear a pin drop. So the fact is that at least these bigger YouTube channels, these companies are aware of them and are paying attention to them. So we as a community are having an impact. But that also means that, again, you have to do your part. You have to not only get your voice heard, whether it's dropping comments in other people's streams or doing your own YouTube streams talking about these things, but also the most fundamental way that you impact these companies and get your message across is when you withhold your dollars and you get across to them, I will not support you treating your customers this way.
No. Let me see. Let me see.
NECA is going to end up in front of everyone on a Supreme Court looking like a bunch of morons when they lose the trial.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think anything that they're doing would make it to the Supreme Court, but yeah, I could absolutely see a consumer action case brought against them because they took the money from the people that pre-ordered something. They are either going to have to refund that money or get them the product.
Does this thing cost more than $100? I take it.
Yes, I think it was like $400.
Holy cow! That's
a whole other issue.
Wow,
it's incredibly overpriced, but you know
made
what?
Out of ivory. I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay,
But I will say this: I have paid ridiculous prices for things that I wanted. You know,
tailbirds.
Yeah, well, you paid. Yeah, that's a great example because you paid basically twice what it sold for originally, right? Because you were buying it on the secondary market. That's a whole other issue that we could get into about the secondary market, and maybe these companies might want to start re-releasing things that people want because better they get the money than some scalper. But you want to throw money away, you can throw money away. I don't care. But look, if you want this thing badly enough and you're going to pay $400 for a pre-order, well, that's your choice. And it's not my place to say boo to you about that. I wouldn't do that. I don't think that's a smart way to spend your money. But if you do, good on you. The problem is when you take their $400 and don't give them a product. That's called theft.
People are okay, and some of the less scrupulous members.
I'm glad he brought that up, because I actually wanted to mention that. That's a great point. They know that they're going to have to refund $400 to every single person who doesn't get it, so they are willing to incentivize the people that did have it to get them to send it back by basically sending them a quarter of what they would be paying out. They know they screwed up, and they know it's going to cost them, and they want to minimize what it costs them. But I'm telling you, you piss people off enough, that $100 may not be enough, and you're going to end up having to pay out that $400 to somebody else.
Yeah.
They are losing money in a big way on this. And I can only hope that whoever screwed this up like this lost their job over this. Because that's a huge screw up.
And that brings us to the end.
At least the end for this week. But we're starting a new week. What do we got coming up this week, my friend?
Well, I don't think you're doing anything tomorrow, but on Tuesday.
No, for those of you that didn't see on my community tab, I decided that as long as I am doing these long form videos for Sparkwood and 21, I just don't have the time on Monday to do another stream.
Right.
So
this is the third part, right? Third one, right?
This is the third and final part, so I will be done this week. So no Last Call Monday night at the movies this week. We will return next week. We will probably be starting with Christmas themed stuff for the rest of the month.
I'll join you Monday if I can pick a movie. Not this Monday, but the following Monday.
What Monday are you? Or what Monday? What movie are you thinking?
I'll tell you after the stream.
Okay.
I'm thinking Run All Night with Liam Neeson. It's a thriller, and it does take place during Christmas time. Okay.
Oh, jeez.
It's a Liam Neeson actioner. Come on.
I looked up a list of the 100 best Christmas movies as rated by Rotten Tomatoes, and there was a good 5 movies that would kind of fall into that Die Hard, takes place at Christmas type thing. And I'm looking at it going, there's just too darn many really, really, really Christmas movies that I cannot justify. I just can't justify those. But we'll talk.
Reindeer game, so that's funny.
We'll talk after. But so no Monday night at the movies this week. But join us at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern on Tuesday over on Deleted Scenes channel for part 3, the final part of the final dossier for Twin Peaks. It takes some of the most strange and loopy stuff from The Return that may have boggled your mind and kind of makes some sense out of it. Definitely worth it. Very meaty, but worth it if you are on this journey with us, trying to understand the lore and the story behind Twin Peaks. So that's 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern on Tuesday, followed immediately after by at 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern on my channel for Blake 7, the penultimate episode of the season or series, as the Brits call it, an episode called Deliverance. No, it has nothing to do with banjos, but it is it's a good episode. But next week's episode is one of my favorites, and we'll talk about that on Tuesday at 9:30, 10:30 Central.
Villa weighs 23 kilos.
It's not Orbit. No.
That's my favorite.
Aurak.
Oh,
yes.
That's a good one too.
Yes. So we're getting another member of the crew. We'll talk about that on Tuesday. Thursday on Netters Network. Who is your guest on Thursday, Netter of Netters Network?
Well, originally I didn't have a guest, but just maybe about a half hour ago or so, I got a guest. So it will be Fletcher Williams, I Suck at Games channel.
Yep. He's been on with us before, but he's got some new things going on, a new channel, and we will talk with him in detail about those things on Netters Network on Thursday, 9 Central, 10 Eastern. Which brings us to Friday. Last call with me and Boomer. 9:30 Central, 9 Central, 10 Eastern. What are we going to be talking about on Friday, Boomer?
Why the 80s were awesome.
Yeah. We're going to share some 80s nostalgia. And for those of you that grew up in the 80s, you can relive some of that with us. For those of you that didn't, maybe you'll understand. You'll understand Stranger Things a little bit better.
You'll learn what you missed.
That's true.
I graduated from high school in 1980.
There you go.
I graduated from high school in 89. So we both graduated in the 80s. But anyway, and that brings us around to Saturday, Netters Network Retro Cinema, where at 9 Central, 10 Eastern on Netters channel, our film will be...
I do not gotta look it up because I don't remember.
They Lived Happily
Ever After.
There you go.
Hey, I have been working my
I know you are exhausted
all week. I'm so tired. I barely know my name.
I know. I don't know how you actually made it through the whole stream. I super appreciate it, sweetie. Sashi just got here. Welcome, Sashi. Says, apologies if I didn't reply to greetings. YouTube is getting weird for me. I'm getting bombarded by ads and the chat just freezes for me.
Weird.
I'm so sorry to hear that, man. That's just crazy. That's YouTube for you. I don't know what to tell you about that. And Jonathan Conroy, if I didn't say hi to you earlier, I apologize, but I see that you're heading out. Thanks for being here, my friend. Good to see you. And yes, Nate, Ben Affleck's Reindeer Games, I did see that in the list. Not sure I'm going to get to that. We are thinking, including lessons learned from the Thanksgiving marathon. We are probably going to do a Christmas marathon. That's Christmas Wednesday. Another all-day thing, but we will space them out a little bit better to put a few more. We'll have a decent-sized break in between each one. We won't go straight from one to the other. But warning you in advance, we're going to do the same thing we did on Thursday, where we're going to start with the G-rated, the TV G-rated stuff in the morning. So that'll be your Rudolph, Santa Claus is coming to town, that kind of stuff. So that's Christmas morning, okay? And then, progress to the, I don't want to say adults, because there's nothing really R-rated.
Mature.
Yeah. I mean, I may do Krampus or something like that, but if I do that, it'll probably be a Monday stream. So
that's a good movie. I only saw it once, but that one scares the bejesus out of me.
Yeah. There's a certain existential dread for people that love Christmas.
I don't even know what a bejesus is, but it scared it out of me.
Exactly. So that's what I'm kind of hoping for the Mondays. Probably doing things like Krampus, Gremlins, Black Christmas. What was that? Violent Night. Things like that. So I haven't seen that one yet. So I want to see that.
That's a good one, actually.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I just haven't gotten a chance to see it.
All right.
Well, the best part is we're not going to be cooking a turkey all day that we have to keep breaking and taken care of.
No, I'm doing ham, and I'm not even roasting it. I'm just doing slices of ham that'll be done in 15 minutes tops.
Yeah, they're ones that are like prepackaged that we got from.
Yeah, they're ham steaks.
Yeah, ham steaks. We got them before. They're really good.
Yeah,
sounds good.
Yeah. And relatively cheap. And damn it, there's only two of us. We don't need a whole turkey, but we got a whole turkey.
Leftover white meat to nibble on and try and make an incredible soup out of the dark meat.
That soup turned out really good. I was talking about how we keep it on the stove and bring it to a boil every day.
Which some people find weird.
Which in theory, you could keep it almost indefinitely. But the thing is, we're going through it so fast. It's not going to last just because it's going to be gone. But anyway, so that's what we've got coming up, and I've gone on way too long because I know Boomer needs to wrap this up because he has a busy next 24 hours.
Yes, it's going to be very busy for me, but it was great hanging with y'all.
Yeah.
And we'll see you again next week. Take care, everybody.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.